Just doing some quick numbers. How many issues and how long Ben Reilly was a hero versus how many issues and how long he's been a villain.
What is this? What is this?
We have 31 months where he's a hero.
All right, well, let's kick it off. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Panels on Pages podcast. My name is Dalibor Zujovic, and I am joined today by Josh Wasta of Graphically Novel and holy crap, I can't remember the other one. What's the other one?
Rhett Conversations.
Rhett Conversations. I have been a guest, an honored guest at on Graphically Novel previously, and it was a great time had by all. We talked about Warrior Nun, which is getting like a finale. I'm so excited about that.
Right? Yeah, it got a second season, and then it was going to be canceled, and people were like, "Nope."
I don't know what Netflix is up to these days. Anyway, we'll get to that, I'm sure. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, man. I took a small break, like a 2-3 month break off of doing some podcasts. Left things for, to kind of percolate. And of course, in that time, people reached out to me, and they were like all of the spectrum from, hey, I'm thinking about starting a podcast. Do you mind taking some time? So now I've got like mini podcasters under me, which is amazing. And then, new ideas and things. So lots coming up and lots being worked on. So it's a great summer.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. But you were working so far ahead, you probably aren't even going to miss a week of shows, are you?
Yeah, we actually, our last recorded podcast that we put up was in January, and we just started again 2 weeks ago. So we had a good okay. Bit. We were starting to slow down a little bit with going as far ahead because the holidays and everything else. The reason we were working so far ahead, like in the fall, is because you don't know what's going to come up anytime between the end of October and January, pretty much. So
true.
So yeah. So
that's a good idea. I should implement that this year. My mother-in-law's moving in with us at the beginning of October, so who knows what's going to happen in the holidays?
As long as it's not time sensitive, man, start recording,
That's a good point. You know what? Didn't think of that. Now it's in the noggin. That's a very good point. Because I'm actually trying to get back to like a regular schedule. I actually wrote out a schedule of shows for the podcast. So nice. I'm gonna have different kind of themes. This is, I've got a guest on. We're gonna talk, and then I'm gonna do topical. I'm gonna do reviews, like actual comic reviews, because I've been kind of dabbling in that a little bit on TikTok, but I kind of do want to get a little more into it. And yeah, just like be a little more focused with it, because usually it's like, I'm gonna hit record, let me pull up my list of ideas, what am I gonna do here today?
Yeah.
So I want to be a little more focused on it.
Yeah, on our side we depend a lot on what people are interested in, so or what's in the zeitgeist. So like this season on Graphically Novel, we're gonna start doing things like Secret Invasion because the new Marvel show just came out. But the comic book content has kind of slowed down a little bit, which, it was like drinking from a fire hose for a few years there. So now it's more like we had somebody reach out to us that has, I don't know if you've heard of the Icon series that they're doing out of, it's associated with Marvel. But the newest one is called World Breaker Hero Icon. And it's about the Hulk. And it's basically, if you know nothing about the Hulk, but you're really interested in the character, here's a book that collects like not full issues, but like panels from the beginning all the way to like the World Breaker stuff. And the author's name is Rich Johnson. So he's done Spider-Man, Captain America, and he's just releasing Hulk. So we're going to be interviewing him soon, and that was finally the impetus to bite the bullet and do our Hulk episode. So we're watching Lou Ferrigno Hulk. We're watching... Oh,
man, you're watching the whole thing.
We're doing anything that is Hulk-based. Oh, wow. We're trying to get an understanding for it. We're finally doing Superman, because that's the sword of Damocles has been hanging over us for the entirety of,
Good luck with that.
yeah, we started with the serials, man. We went back.
Oh, wow.
So I know a lot about Superman now, and I have a better appreciation. That show's going to be interesting because I've never been interested in Superman.
Have you gotten to the most recent show, the Superman and Lois?
Yeah, which I like.
Great show.
Yeah. I'm a fan of a lot of the stuff the CW puts out DC wise. I'm a huge fan of Legends of Tomorrow, which
we were fucking robbed.
Yeah.
Robbed. Like the fact that they set up. Have you gotten to the end?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm done.
The fact that like they arrest them and then it's like we canceled the show, and then the director was like, "Oh, that's my fault. I wasn't sure if we were going to be renewed, so I rolled the dice." And I was like, "Don't roll the fucking dice."
Well, it said in today's media, that also sets up like comic books that can end the story. They did it for Buffy, for Angel, for Firefly, for
but it's not the same.
I agree, it's not the same, but at least it's something.
You give me Turk as fucking Michael.
Yeah, as the Blue Beetle.
Like,
Booster Gold, right? Booster Gold.
Me fucking, oh my god, dude. Donald Faison as Booster Gold was inspired fucking choice. You're gonna give me that and then be like, we're not gonna renew it. Like, go fuck yourself. I'm so mad about that. I'm gonna be mad about that forever, dude. Like, unless they cast him, unless James Gunn's like, you know what, he could just be our Booster,
right? No, I'm
perfectly fine with that.
Booster Gold's one of my favorite DC characters anyway. Like, I love the idea of a dude that's just kicking in the future, being like, if I took some of this tech and I went back to the golden age of superheroes, I'd be a superhero.
There's just so many layers to him. I mean, I did not actually really like the actor that they used for him on Smallville, but I like the character. Like, and maybe the actor was so good that that's why I didn't like it, because I thought that for the longest time about, I don't know if I told you about this before. Did you watch Dexter?
I watched the first 2 seasons.
So the sister, I hated her. I thought she was just a terrible actress. I was like, oh my god, like, could you just do the job better, dude? And then I watched her in, I think it was Quarantine.
Yeah.
And she killed it. And I was like, oh my god, no, she was doing a great job.
Those choices were intentional.
You're supposed to hate her. I was like, oh shit. So that's why I'm like, I don't, it's hard for me to just outright be like, oh, that's a bad actor anymore, because I'm like, they might just be doing a great job at making the character unlikable.
I've had conversations with people about Matt Ryan as Constantine, and it's the same thing. If they have no background for Constantine, they're like, and he's just smarmy. And I'm like, he's killing it. Actually, is what that is.
Explain to you. Before that show, I would say I read the New 52.
Mm-hmm.
I think before that came out, and I read like one of the books of magic. So like way back.
All right, yeah.
And that was like my entire exposure. Him on screen, I was like, perfect, 100% top to bottom, perfect.
And when he first showed up, when the Constantine show first started, his voice was bothering me for half of the beginning of the first episode. I'm like, I know this voice. Where do I know this voice? My absolute favorite video game of all time is Assassin's Creed Black Flag. He voices the main character in Assassin's Creed Black Flag. And so I'm like, oh, okay. So I was predisposed to like him. And I mean, Jen and I have all of Hellraiser, like starting like from the beginning in Vertigo. Like, wow, I love Constantine as a character.
That's one of those things that I will be getting to eventually. That's the like dark side of DC. Like I was part of this thing called Comics Experience out of Sacramento. They did a monthly book thing. So like when they raised the minimum wage in California, or in Sacramento specifically, like back in like 2015 or something. And the comic shop was basically like, we have 2 locations. We will not be able to afford $17 an hour for our employees. We just will not be able to afford it. And instead of shutting down, they did what I believe is the correct maneuver. They invented an entire new line of business for themselves. So they did a monthly book pickup. Basically, you pay ahead for the year or you pay monthly, and they just send you a book. And they pick it. Sometimes it's more like it's Audible, but for graphic novels.
Sure.
Like
That's great.
they pick it, they send it to you. So I've got all sorts of weird shit that I never in my wildest dream would have picked off the shelf. Like I've got this book called Moon Cop. I think, if I recall correctly, it has no words. That has no words in the fucking book. And I would never. It's like a completely like a style I would never have fucking looked at. And when I read it, I was like, oh, this is actually interesting because like the story is told so well visually, but I never would have picked that up. Even at a half price, I would not have picked that up on my own. So
that's fantastic.
It was great, but I got Overture through that.
Yeah.
And Overture is like the prequel.
Yep.
But I didn't know that. I didn't, I was just like, oh, this is dope. They're like, oh, it's like the newest Sandman thing. And I was like, oh man, like I don't know if I could read that. And then I like Googled it and I was like, oh, it's like it happened before issue 1. And I was like, bet. So I read it. It was great. Like it was genuinely a really good time to read. And then I found out that there's like, 200 fucking comic books that come after that. So it became this like really overwhelming thing that it's just like, and they keep making them. They're making like 5 or 6 books a month in that like corner of the DC universe.
I am a purist when it comes to the Sandman universe. So I will tell you there are 74 issues of Sandman.
But yeah, but it, like the other shit ties in, like the books of
it
magic.
It does. If you
like, and I really like the first books of magic, so I was like, I really kind of want like the whole books of magic. But then I found out like, oh, it ties into Sandman, it ties into fucking Hellraiser,
Lucifer, and
like, all this shit. I was like, fuck.
Yeah, they're really pushing the larger Sandman universe right now, which I don't mind because I like what they're doing with it. But I mean, if you really enjoyed Overture and you just want the general idea of Sandman, 74 issues.
All right, that's fair.
And then and if you haven't watched the Netflix show, God, it's a beautiful like love story, like love language to the original comics. It is
so here's
expertly done.
The fucking funny thing is I read Overture. And then Audible was like, get chapter 1 for
those
free.
Are fucking amazing too.
And I was like, fuck it. It's free. I'm not paying anything extra for it. I'm not using one of my credits. Download. So I downloaded it and I was like, I do have a dubiously acquired copy of Sandman comics. Let me read it. Like, let me look at the pages while it's happening.
Oh yeah.
So I was like pairing it at the same time. So I was listening to it and reading it, and I went through the whole first issue, and I was like, damn, that was really like that was a great experience to like the sound design to match what I'm seeing on screen. So good. The dialogue was almost 100% from the comic, which is I love that shit when it's like really, really true to the actual source material. I really like that. Like, because to me, like an audio presentation is like an audio production is a different thing. It's a different medium. So I have an expectation of like a degree of adaptation.
Right.
Like it's not the graphic novel. Like, some shit is not going to be the same. So in certain scenes, like they added a few lines, in certain scenes they cut a few lines, and it made sense. Like I was like, oh yeah, that totally makes sense. Like why he's only saying the first and last sentence of this big ass paragraph that he wrote 30 fucking years ago.
Right. Absolutely. No, because you can show not tell. And even in audio, you can add in background noises, or the narrator can do the heavy lifting.
If you are a fan of audio dramas, I will never not recommend the Liberty Podcast. There are like 3 or 4 different shows that they did under the Liberty Podcast banner, but it is so good. The first one, I believe, is called Resurgence. No, Critical Research. Critical Research is the first thing that they did.
Okay.
So good. So freaking good. They did a graphic novel series as well. It's this, super high sci-fi thing. Elements of like Judge Dredd, you've got like the outside of the city people, the mutants and all that stuff. It's really, really well done. I I thought it was just going to be a podcast because when I met them at a convention and they were like,
Yeah.
yeah, we're doing a Kickstarter. And I was like, oh, yeah, I'll jump on the Kickstarter. I'll get this graphic novel. And they're like, yeah, this whole thing started as a podcast. And I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. Because at the time, this was podcasting to me. Like, I had no concept that other things existed in the podcast sphere. So, and then after I read it, I was like, oh, man, this is a really good story. I was like, let me try the podcast. Holy, and then like as soon as like, oh, I'm hearing like audio, I'm hearing walking, I'm hearing doors closing. I was like, oh, this is different. This is a show. And they also did one that's actually also completely done, but just a absolute chef's kiss finish. Vast Horizon, out fucking standing. I recommend everyone listen to that. It's such a good. I like if they made that into a TV series, it would be probably universally loved. I cannot imagine someone who wouldn't love this. It's so high sci-fi. It's so good. Like the acting was really solid. The concepts are like it's man versus AI kind of thing. Like and so good. So I love the audio drama thing. So when I saw DC diving into it, it was like, oh, the Batman audio drama. I was like, oh, really? Because I remember the first one, and it really came out of nowhere. It was like Wolverine.
Yeah.
Why the fuck are they doing a Wolverine podcast?
And then they started doing like the Marvel Wastelanders stuff, and yeah, I've listened to some of that. There is a Harley Quinn audio drama that I listened to recently, where Christina Ricci is Harley Quinn.
I have loved Christina Ricci since I was like 12.
Yes, it is called Harley Quinn and the Joker: Sound Mind.
Okay.
High recommend. It's a really quick listen. All the episodes are out. But yeah, the way that they did it is pretty awesome. And actually, speaking of Smallville, the guy Justin that played Oliver Queen on Smallville, he does the voice of Bruce Wayne.
Oh, that's funny. You said Harley and Joker, Sound Mind.
Yep.
All right, I'm gonna save that. That's funny because Arrow on CW was just Green Batman.
Yes, absolutely.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I was actually happy with the finale of Flash. I was happy. I'm okay with
I haven't gotten there yet.
I'm trying to think, what was the other there was another show, wasn't there? Am I crazy? Besides Legends.
Well, there's Lois Clark, Supergirl,
right. That was good. I thought kind of weird that did you see the finale?
I haven't watched the finales of either Flash or Supergirl. And I need to still watch Stargirl.
Flash is a whole shebang, man. Flash is a whole thing. Because the whole last season is the finale. It all very like you can't just watch the last episode and like know what's going on, and like the ride it takes you, because I actually just watched a video last night where they were kind of like explaining the ending, and I thought they were just gonna like go the last episode and explain this whole thing, and then when they went through the whole season, I was like, yeah, it really does kind of all intertwine. Like I was like, that's true, that's a fair point. Like I didn't even think about that, but it really all does kind of, it's a whole like, whatever 10 episode or 12 episode finale, like proper finale, and I appreciate that. That's why on Supergirl I wasn't the biggest fan of the way they ended it, but it was a setup in terms of like what a potential future could look like, and I was like, that could be interesting. So it was like, I wasn't like, this is a great finale, but that's so rare that you end a show and it's like perfect finale.
Yeah.
Like what's a show you've listened to or watched that, or listened to for that matter, that like ended perfectly, where you were just like, oh man, everything's satisfied, love the way this ended?
The first one that comes to mind is The Good Place.
Okay.
Which it tear jerking, but again, the entirety of the season is kind of a finale. Because they actually knew what was going on and they had the time to ramp it up. Yeah, it's so hard to stick the landing
Right.
It really is, and walk away feeling at least somewhat satisfied.
Right. One show that I liked was called Continuum. I don't know if you ever watched that one.
Yeah, I didn't watch
Uh,
it through the end, but I did watch some of it.
I felt like, you know, season 2 or whatever was a huge stumble because it like kind of took a left turn, but then it picked itself back up, and they did like a half season for the finale because they knew they were getting canceled, and they're like, we really want to do a finale, so they did like a 6 episode or 8 episode thing to finish it off. And I was like, hey, and like when it ends, I was like, it like hurt, but that was the point. Like essentially, like the finale was the finale, and there really was no way around that one. Like it needed to end the way it ended, and yeah, that's why like a recent one that I watched. What was it? The Expanse. Terrible finale. So many left dangling threads. I like tweeted at Jeff Bezos, and I was like, hey, if you're such a big fan, you agree that we need another season, because there's so many threads left. I'm gonna need to know more. Yeah, so
I don't know if maybe it's just easier. Like as I think about it, like comedies tend to be able to stick the landing better.
Yeah,
Like Parks and Rec stuck the landing, 6 Feet Under stuck the landing, although I consider that a comedy, but I have a really dark sense of humor.
Yeah,
like
going back to, like comedies that I've watched all the way through, like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. It was like, this is a natural, like everyone's parting ways. Yep. It made perfect sense. But I think anything, especially if you build a rich world around your main characters.
Yeah.
If there's anything dangling besides like the main character cast, if you've given me any kind of time and investment into somebody else's story, and that's my problem with the last season of Expanse. They had this whole secondary plot with this little girl that they just fucking abandoned.
They just dropped.
And I was like, what the shit just happened? Oh man, it was like I was like, it was the most disappointed I've been in something, especially when it was a show that was so fucking good.
Yeah.
But we'll see if the graphic novel picks it up, although it's supposedly it happens between like the 6th and 7th book. That's the thing. There is a final book. There's a final book that they could just adapt into a final season and we call it a wrap. But that's an interesting story too, because that's a recent book series.
Right.
Like all things accounted for, like that is a pretty recent book series to get a full-on adaptation like that. And that's shocking, because usually it's like, oh, you got to have these classics and, long-standing properties, and there's 17 books. Or
well, you run into the Game of Thrones problem.
Right.
You don't have a guaranteed ending when you start, and then you don't have a guaranteed ending when you finish.
Right. Yeah, that's why they're going to make Lord of the Rings stuff for the rest of time, because like they know how it ends.
Right.
You can remake Lord of the Rings forever. You can remake Harry Potter forever. They shouldn't, but they can.
Right. It's why, as long as the movies keep going, you're going to see these Dune movies coming out.
Right. Because this is like what, the 4th time they've remade the movies?
Third.
Like 3.
If you count miniseries, yeah, 3rd.
3 full adaptations. That's crazy.
Yeah.
But then also you look at something like the Merlin Arthur stuff.
Right.
Infinite adaptations.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Sherlock Holmes, infinite adaptations.
I just picked up. Speaking of which, I got to show you this. This is insane. I just picked this up. I didn't know this existed. Where is it? I was at a comic shop yesterday in the city, and they had 40% off. And I was like, that's why I went, because I saw an ad, they had 40% off. And I'm looking around. Mycroft Homes
by Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. What?
I was like, does that? And I like stared at it for about 2 minutes. I flipped it around and it says, all new graphic novel adventure from author, activist, columnist, and NBA All-Star athlete Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And I was like, I gotta fucking buy this book.
Well,
I gotta fucking buy this book. That's crazy.
That's worth it for the shelf value alone.
Just to be able to be like, check out my comics, like hang out by M for a second.
Yeah, right?
Just take a look by M. Oh my.
That's the one that you face out.
Give me just a second. Jeez, my phone says system UI not responding. Okay. Close the app. Sure. Yeah, close the system UI. Fucking what? Sorry about that. We're going through a whole selling my mother-in-law's house in California to move her in over here. It's a whole thing. It's a whole process, and we got realtors and I had a question. And yeah, it's a whole thing.
Fucking adulting. Read a comic book.
Right, man. Fuck, what were we talking about? Oh, the Kareem Abdul-Jabbar book. But yes. But let's pivot now that was a natural stop to our freeform conversation, which I'm sure we'll get back to. Let's talk about the topic, the reason we're here today.
Because we're fighting.
We're fighting, and I don't know why we're fighting. I didn't say anything controversial, sir.
Sure you did.
I posted, you had posted something that's been going around the comic book circles of people saying, when people ask you what's a comic book they should check out, you give them these like highfalutin things like, Watchmen or Dark Knight.
Some people do, yeah. And like, that's a problem. Like, don't give somebody Watchmen for their first comic, because Watchmen is a deconstruction of comic books.
Yeah. Yeah, you give them these like what you think to be like the high piece like examples of like the best of the best of comic books, as opposed to like you picked up part 13 in a 50-part series of Hulk or whatever, and you were hooked for life. So I was like, bet from now on I'm recommending Amazing Spider-Man 414, which is the first comic book I ever picked up off a shelf. It was at a gas station. My uncle took me there. And I was like, it was a choice of like Fantastic 5 2099 or whatever the hell, and fucking Spider-Man. And I was like, I don't know shit. There's a robot in this one. This isn't nobody I know. There's a girl fire person. I don't know what's happening here. So I'm gonna pick up Spider-Man. And then when I opened it, I was like, who the fuck is this blonde dude? And I kept reading and found out all of the nonsense, because that was when they were trying to sell the Peter's the clone. And I'm reading it like, what the fuck do you mean Peter's the clone? Why is he now getting degeneration or whatever? And then they were like, no, joking. He wasn't the clone. And I was like, all right, but then what was he suffering from 2 issues ago?
Right. So
why was he disincorporating 2 issues ago?
I did like graphic novels when I was a kid. But my first single issue that I ever picked up was Spider-Man number 35, which was part 4 of 12 in the Maximum Carnage. So yeah, talk about being fucking lost.
Oh my god. And especially, did you know about Carnage at that point? Like, did you know it existed?
The zeitgeist, like, I was like, okay, so there's Venom, and we all know Venom, and then there are some other symbiotes. Okay. And that was it. And then there was Shriek in those, and she just had her own series. Symbiotes are the shit right now, apparently. Apparently symbiotes sell a lot of fucking comics right now, and I don't understand that at all. No, neither do I.
Like, if you had told me 10 years ago that in 2023 there'd be 4 separate ongoing fucking symbiote books, I'd be like, that doesn't make sense. Why would anyone?
Black Widow is about to have a symbiote.
So I flipped through the most recent issue. I'm pretty sure this was like her finding her symbiote. She shows up and she like knows it's there, and she's like, who are you? Do you want to come with me? And I was like, how does she know? Why is she talking to a symbiote? Does she have powers we don't know about? This is a whole new fucking thing. Like, they haven't revealed it's her, but she's like in cloak, she's skulking around shadows. I was like, this is the reveal, because we've seen the previews.
Right. Oh my god. Yeah. So so that was the thing that I posted. Basically, all of us, real comic book people, we started in the middle of something and had to
Yeah.
figure our way out. But like my general go-to, if I'm going to recommend something to someone, is okay. If not superhero, I will generally say Transmetropolitan. Transmetropolitan is a
Okay.
great comic book series to
I haven't read
say,
that one.
oh, if you want, well, it's Warren Ellis, so it's a lot.
I love Ellis. I love
But
Ellis.
yeah, I do too.
I love Ellis, and I was real mad when I found out that he had all the fucking bullshit allegations. And I was like, can you motherfuckers just fucking behave?
Well, it's okay. Now we're gonna go back into a different topic. Warren Ellis. People are like, he's a groomer. I'm like, have you ever looked at anything Warren Ellis has ever written, put on the internet, or said? Yes. Yes, he's a groomer. He says it. He used to like have his live journal used to every morning he would be like, good morning, sinners, post me some nudes. Like he was full on Spider Jerusaleming for the last 20 years. So you can't turn around and be like, well, nobody knew. Yeah, you did. You did.
No. My problem.
You can be a scumbag and just say you're a scumbag.
My problem with him, and then I honestly did not know about any of that nonsense. And maybe that would have colored my opinions differently. I have only ever known about him through his work until this happened.
Okay.
So like I didn't even half the time I don't even think, like when I'm on the internet interacting with the comic book community, I'm looking, I'm the indie hype man, so I look for indie creators, people who I feel like are reachable and I can have a conversation with and can have them on the show, or fans, people who are like, I recently followed someone who's really into Exiles, and I love Exiles, and I was like, that's why I'm following this person.
Yeah.
I'm not looking, and then it was like I came across someone replying to G. Willow Wilson, and I was like, oh, G. Willow Wilson, she does good stuff, I should follow her. And it was like I never thought to reach out and like find G. Willow Wilson's social, so I never knew any of this shit. I read fucking Authority, and Authority is all time, like especially Warren Ellis Authority is all fucking time.
Yep.
And like a lot of the shit that I've liked throughout the years has been his writing.
Dr. Sleepless is amazing if you like indie books.
Like he's done a great job. And then this whole shit happened, and the one fucking thing, like regardless of it, like again, you're saying that he's had all this stuff and it was kind of like the evidence was there, but to me, he said, oh, I didn't realize that I didn't think that there was any kind of power imbalance. I was like, even I know you're one of the most like recognizable motherfucking writers in the space. You don't think there's a power imbalance?
Right.
Like I'm bigger than him in every possible fucking physical way. And in a room together, he has the fucking power difference because he has way more connections and context and that shit. Like, so anyone that wants to do anything with comics would happily be like, oh yeah, like what you need? Let me go get you a coffee or whatever. And if he abused that in any fucking fashion, fuck him. But that pisses me off because I really like his fucking writing.
Well, and we've talked about on Graphically Novel and Rec Conversations a lot about separating the art from the artist because, you have to at this point. The reckoning is coming for white dudes.
That's
like
true.
that's the thing.
That's the thing, right? That's such a great point. At this point, it's the numbers and the math is so against pretty much everyone that's written shit and made shit in the past.
Yeah.
That at this point, you have to separate it if you want to be able to, I don't even want to say enjoy necessarily, but even just to consume some shit from your childhood.
Right.
Like you need to be like, all right, cool, we can't have this. So I
didn't know Alan Moore was a predator. Have you even ever seen a picture of Alan Moore?
I'm sorry. run that one by me. What?
Yeah, there's been allegations about
motherfucker. You know what? But like he's not surprising.
No,
that's always the one. He's like, well, I don't want to do nothing with this. I don't want to be in public. I don't want to do a cameo.
I'm a creepy polyamorous warlock that thinks that I wrote myself into godhood.
Yeah, right.
He's crazy. So
I do love that story of like, oh, I was at a cafe and I met John Constantine. I was like, the look, I want to believe. There's a part of me that wants to believe. There's a part of me that wants to be like, magic is real. And John Constantine hopped over universes and was like, what's up, bitch? Like, but at the same time,
right.
bro, if
Yeah.
if
No,
magic was real, even in the infinitesimal, we'd see some better shit around here, man. Like there'd be cooler shit out.
right. Right. No, and I mean, there is something to be said for creativity, going hand in hand with power corrupting,
Oh yeah.
like the creative types are the ones that generally can't handle it. I mean, because to be that creative, it has to come from somewhere. And then when that is actually validated, like that's got to be chasing the dragon at that point. That's got to be like the biggest high, to have all of your shit validated at that level, like not just money wise, but fame wise and acclaim wise and all of these other things. You go Sith real quick.
I have to believe that's true, man. And I'm genuinely so glad that what I'm choosing to believe is like the beginning of my career in writing, that I have really latched down to the actual process more.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I finished my book, I've said this a fucking dozen times on this podcast, but like when I finished it and I literally printed it and had it in my hand, I was like, this is fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Like no one's fucking read it yet. No one, like, I mean, maybe people read it through the magazine or whatever, but like after I put it together, after I had it in hand, and I was like, oh, this is so fucking cool. Just the actual making of it. And at that point, I was like, this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to make it. I want to share it with people. And if people like it, outstanding. I love that. But like the making of it, I love the creating of the universe and the sculpting of the whole story. I like the shit that I wrote into this story. That's like for me and for anyone who's from Rio or from fucking Chicago or from fucking Washington DC, that's for them. That's for me. That's for us. Like that's the shit is in there. My buddy Ben read it and he's like, hey, so like if you were like, he's like, great choice for this. I've been to this park many times. He's like, I'm from DC. I was like, that's fucking awesome. That's exactly what I wanted.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's like, if you wanted to be a little more cinematic, you'd pick this other park because like that's where they shoot a lot of movies and like that's why they choose it there because it's more cinematic. He's like, but if this is meant because it's like a secret agent thing, he's like, but if you're meant to be like out of the way, I'm like, that's exactly what I was going for. He's like, this is the right place to do it. I was like, that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, so I started dating my wife 10 years ago and she lived 22 years in Chicago. And starting to date her and going back to Chicago to see the kids and, for weddings and stuff, which is where I met you.
Yep.
I was also just getting into the Harry Dresden books. And Jim Butcher's another author that takes like places in Chicago and just sticks them in the book for events to happen. So we'd be driving down the street and like Jen would point out a hotel and be like, hey, that's from the scene in the second book. And I'd be like, no shit. Like, it's a different level when you put real life to, I play Fallout 76. And the whole Fallout series. But like the Fallout series, you could walk through DC and see shit from Fallout 3.
That's cool.
Like museums and stuff.
That's cool. See, that's what I'm saying. Like that's the connection that I like. The reality of it. That's why anytime there's like a game, like when Watch Dogs, you see them up there. That's the statue. I pre-ordered the statue edition from the first one. When they like first announced Watch Dogs with like the highly polished graphics, the shit we never got.
Right. Yeah.
I saw that they were like, this is set in Chicago, and I was like, I'm in. I'm fucking in. I'm in the whole way. I don't care anything else. I'm in. And when the same thing happened when
you drive up a mountain.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we're not going to talk about that. They're future mountains, okay? They're future mountains.
Future mountains.
But then they did Need for Speed The Run, and there's the like piece that they used in the marketing was where like you crash the car onto the fucking CTA track and you jump out and you got to run from the cops and shit in Chicago. And I was like, this is awesome. I have to play this game. That is literally the only time you get out of the car in the entire game. But that's fine. It's like there's a spot on 9094 where I'm like going under an overpass. I'm like, I've raced this spot. That's how I feel. Like I've raced this spot. I want to race here.
I'm in the new Gran Turismo movie now.
Like that's yeah, exactly. Like I love that moment where he's on the track in the movie and he's like, I know this track, I've raced it 1,000 times. And I was like, that's how it feels. That's exactly how it feels.
Right.
Like if you're in somewhere real and you've been there in a game, it's this like weird fucking deja vu. And you're like, I know exactly what's going on here. Like that's why I have a grand plan, big game in mind, and the places that I've chosen for like major things to occur are like places I've been to in real life that have like really interesting architecture. And I was like, this is the spot where you would have a standoff or whatever. Like,
that's fantastic.
I'm like, I want to build it. My ultimate goal is to make a 3-game series. First game, straight story mode, first person, you play through, well, ideally 4-player co-op. And then it leads into a second limited time online multiplayer, which I know is an insane concept because it's like the antithesis of online multiplayers because you want it to be multi-year to make money.
Right.
But I would just want it to be like a 3-year online multiplayer. If you never played it, sorry, homie, you never played it. You could watch the fucking movie afterwards. And then the third one, you take everything you built and made in 3 and you play in custom built cities. Basically, the community votes for what cities to make, and whatever comes up on top every few months we drop a new city. That's where you're doing the game play in that new city.
Oh, that's awesome. Did you ever watch and or play Defiance?
I watched part of Defiance. I played a bunch of Defiance. I just never, because it was a multiplayer, like an online, like it was a straight up World of Warcraft kind of thing, but for shooters.
Yeah.
And I just didn't have the time.
Oh, okay.
I started it like 3 fucking times.
But there were in-game events you could go to.
That was the big sales pitch.
Shaped what happened in the show.
Yeah.
Like the show would reference large battles that happened in the game, which I thought was great. It was a really cool, fresh kind of concept. It just didn't really take off the way I really wished it would have. But
I think it was probably 5 years too early.
Probably.
I think if it had waited 5 years for graphics to be just a little bit further along and more budget friendly, because now you look at shows, I mean, like The Expanse. The Expanse has incredible graphics.
Mm-hmm.
Like that show, everything. I mean, like the fact that they went into the amount of effort that they went into to like really deal with like inertia in space flight. Crazy to me. Absolutely crazy. Oh, they have to flip the ship around to slow down because they're going so fucking fast. I was like, that makes perfect fucking sense. Makes perfect like, because why, like there's no chance that you would have any sort of retro thrusters that would be powerful enough to counter your massive engine strapped to the back.
Right. So, and maneuvering like that, I mean, wouldn't really, it's space. So you're not dealing with friction.
Like, and it's like you do the like counter thrusters to just 180 you. And I'm like, that's the amount of work they went into it. They're like the great characterization. They're doing a Telltale games set before the show with one of my favorite characters. And I was like, I have to fucking watch the show.
I still need to watch Expanse.
It's a good one. It's a good one. I shotgunned it. I
got a deep list. Then I will find a show and then just I very rarely will like shotgun a show or binge a show. Mostly because I watch with my wife and she's like, after a couple episodes, let's move to something else. We did the last 2 days binge the first season of Twisted Metal, which was way better than it has any right to be.
Twisted Metal?
Based on the video game.
I thought it was a movie coming out.
No, it was a series, 10 episodes. It just released on Peacock.
Okay. Wow, Peacock of all places. All right. Yeah. That's okay. I had to put that on the list.
Yeah.
I swear I thought that was a movie. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's
It's
awesome. That's
and I mean,
awesome.
I'm also a wrestling fan, so like Samoa Joe is Sweet Tooth, but he's voiced by
Oh,
Will
wow.
Arnett.
Nice. Jeez. Wow, what a choice.
Yeah. So Ben Reilly.
Ben Reilly. Let's swing back around to Ben Reilly. So my comment after we said that, after we said what we said was, Marvel really needs to stop disrespecting him because he's a fucking hero, not a villain. And they really have been spending a lot of time in the last 10 years or so trying to make him a villain. And then you said, we're fighting. Why are we fighting, Josh? Because those are facts that I said.
Ben Reilly is such okay. I come from this as a Gambit fan. Gambit is my 100% favorite character.
Okay.
And so I understand what it is to have writers that do not understand a character and write them poorly. Because Gambit can be suave, charming, everybody's best friend, or he can be a rapey creep. And some writers
hasn't been a rapey creep in many years.
Right, but I'm just saying.
Ever since they him and Rogue finally got together, with which, thank fucking God. And
right.
there was all this talk on fucking Twitter that they were gonna like make them get a divorce or split up at the end of the most recent mini. And when they didn't, I was so fucking happy. I was like, I'd be real fucking pissed.
Back there in my case, I've got the alternate cover of their wedding done by J. Scott Campbell.
That was such a great moment too.
Yeah.
To like that bullshit fucking Kitty Pryde's Colossus wedding. I knew it wasn't happening, so like I didn't even care.
Right.
And then for them to just be like, "Hey, while we're all here," which like to me was the call, like maybe intentional, maybe not. Call back to fucking Fresh Prince of Bel-Air when Will was gonna get married, and then like the parents get married.
Yeah.
Like everybody's here. Let's just do this.
So, the thing that I have with Gambit, though, is there's enough there from the very beginning that he was an intriguing character.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that they've ever stuck that landing with Ben Reilly. I think that Ben Reilly was introduced in the Clone Saga, and they made him Spider-Man for all of 1996, and then very, very quickly abandoned that because people hated it.
Right.
And then, they killed him off, where he all of a sudden very quickly decomposes in front of everyone's eyes so that they can be like, well, obviously he was the clone. Like, a lot of ham-fisted, bad storytelling was the impetus of Ben Reilly. And then people just keep taking Ben Reilly and making him worse.
Here's the thing. That is the only era Ben Reilly that fucking matters, because he was a hero. He was trying to find his own way. Yeah, the whole clone saga, like is he the clone? Is he not the clone? That was 100% editorial. That was, we did this thing. It was wild. It sold. Let's do a bunch more shit about that. And then it was like, it was getting good, supposedly. So what's funny is I'm actually right now listening to Wizards, the podcast guide to comics, where they go through the 90s comics through the pages of Wizard, and they're in 1996 right now, and they've been talking a lot about the spider clone. And it was like, in one issue of Wizard, they interviewed one of the editors, and they were like, yeah, we're getting a great response and like all this stuff, blah blah blah, like the clone saga is going great for us. And then in like the next issue, they advertised the death of Ben Reilly. So it was like, it was very much a tumultuous time. I mean, I didn't even know. I heard they did an interview with one of the assistant editors at the time, who worked like in this literal same office as Bob Harris. And apparently Marvel was going to be selling off their comics, like selling off publishing rights.
Yeah.
Like, and I never knew that.
Yeah.
I never knew that. So like apparently this was a period where like Wildstorm was going to get X-Men, Fantastic Four was going to go to DC, all this shit. I didn't know any of this stuff. And that's why all the shit was just throwing shit at the wall. It was just whatever sticks. and X-Men was doing great, so whoever was running the spider office was like, fuck us. Was it maybe it was Machio that was doing the spider? Regardless, they just were like, fucking whatever puts numbers on the board. Like, they didn't care what it was. And that's why back then there was so much shit. I mean, even into the like mid to late 90s, there was so much editorial shit. One of my biggest fucking frustrations with the 90s was the resolution of the Joseph storyline in X-Men.
Oh.
The good Magneto. I had
Yeah.
in my head that what happened was, as they fucking landed, as asteroid M crashed in X-Men #3, that they split. They hit the fucking magnetosphere, something, for whatever magical mutant reason. There was an evil Magneto and a good Magneto. That's why you had like that really notoriously cruel Magneto in the Trial of Gambit.
Yep.
Really fucking cruel, everything he did in that story. And like, you had Joseph, who was like, regardless of his darker impulses, was still doing good, right? He had these memories
and was literally horrified by what Magneto had done.
Yeah. So it was like all this shit, and the fact that how they clarified it was like, oh, okay, cool. Like, we're gonna do the story where we reveal who Joseph was. Oh yeah, he was a clone, and he was a clone made out of spite. And I was like, y'all just did this 2 years ago with Spider-Man. Nobody liked the clone shit then. Why are we doing clone shit now? Like, why is this the solution? Like, there's so many more creative. He could have been Age of Apocalypse Magneto. He could, like, there was so many possible alterations, but nah, y'all went with clone with amnesia of all things. But like, and the fact that like, when he met up with Xavier couldn't sense that he was a clone, couldn't sense that like your mind is like, you're missing memories, like, oh, any number of things that would have been like, oh yeah, you have amnesia. But no, I was so mad about that. So like, there was a lot of these shits that were completely editorial driven, because I asked fucking Fabian Nicieza, and I was like, hey, you wrote the Magneto War. Was it your decision to make him a clone, or like, was that editorial? And that man flat out said to me, I had nothing to do with that character. So to me, that sounded like editorial said, write this thing, and he put words in mouths.
Oh yeah, no, that's not just a comic book problem. That's I when I lived in Los Angeles, I met some people that had done writing work for White Wolf over on the RPG side of the world. And one of them was Jess Hennick, who I had a long conversation with. And there was this big thing in Mage called the Avatar Storm that everyone hated. But he was basically dictated. And he was like, I did the best I could, but a shit sandwich is still a shit sandwich.
Yeah, so that's why I think the Ben Reilly saga in the 90s was so fucking all over the place, because you had editorial just trying to make something happen and make some money.
Right, but here's the issue that I have is, okay, so 75 is when the clone thing happened, but Ben Reilly is quote unquote dead until May of 1994, where he's reintroduced.
But that wasn't him. That was a different clone.
Ben Reilly?
Ben Reilly was a different clone, because if you remember, mid the 95, 96 clone saga, they go to the fucking smokestack and they pull out the Spider-Man body. And
right.
And they tried to make Spider-Man the bad guy, and Jameson had a fucking a bounty on his head, and then they're like, all right, well, let's see who it is. They test them like in front of people, and they find out, oh, the DNA matches Peter Parker, and Peter Parker's like, well, I'm right here, so I don't know how you could say that I'm dead.
Right.
I don't know what's going on exactly. because apparently no one had thought of the idea of clones then.
Right.
Yeah, so like the writing was not great, but my thing is, as soon as he showed up, he was a good guy. He like, when he first showed up, he was trying to go to Aunt May's bedside. Like, he was trying to be like, hey, like, I just want to check on her, make sure she's okay, because I care about her. And every single thing he did post that, including fighting off a fucking Carnage symbiote by himself, mind you, not with like, high tech anything, by himself. And everything he did after that was heroic, up until his heroic death. And then after that, every time his name was brought up, Peter flat out called him. He's like, that was my brother. Like, don't you dare bring him up. Like, don't you dare speak ill of him. That was my brother. So like that was the view I had of him. That's the view that was painted of him. And then, oh, he's the jackal and he's making clones. And they cloned him and killed him so many times that he's actually gone insane. But then he just is fine. Like, I fucking hated that run.
So, well, yes. So there's that. Becomes a jackal, starts new U technologies. So he starts cloning people and releases a new version of the carrion virus that hits the multiverse. Takes over Vegas and betrays the Midnight Suns to Mephisto. Basically, like, makes a deal with Mephisto, looks at the Midnight Suns, is like, yep, I sold you out, deuces. Stabs Kane as he's dying, which that's fine. Kane is a whole other thing. But then the next time he comes back, which is the newest incarnation, he's assisting a company in saying that Peter is copyright infringing the Spider-Man name.
Well, okay, so here's what happened.
I read it.
here's what happened. Okay, he was out and about doing superhero things. He didn't die. During the last Scarlet Spider run, he was supposed to die because his soul was so corrupted that if he died again, he was gonna like be dead forever and he could never come back. Right, his soul was so damaged from all the bullshit. Which was, I thought that was like a weird existential, like spiritual self like take on it. I didn't like it. I didn't like that take. And then like when he died and came back, it was basically like, oh, I get one more chance or whatever. But they made it out to be like, oh, he was going to be evil after that. Like that was like the final corruption of his soul and he could never be anything but soulless and evil. But then, like, the next time he showed up, he was helping Rhodey in the Korvac saga. And I was like, okay, so I thought he was going to be a bad guy. What the fuck happened? Like, but I was like, good. I'm glad he's doing good shit.
This is after he spent some time with Conan the Barbarian, to be specific. There's literally a whole part about Conan the Barbarian in Las Vegas.
Conan's no longer Marvel canon. He's no longer a Marvel property, so he's no longer canon.
I just find it amusing. In my research, I'm like, and then he hung out with Conan the Barbarian for a while. I'm like, of fucking course he did.
The fact that they pushed that so hard while they had it to then again lose the fucking rights.
Yeah.
Insane to me. That should have been a separate world. That should have just been Conan stories. Cause like that, like, I love Avengers. I love team books. I like big fan of those. I'm a big fan of Avengers books. To this day, I've read total of 0 Savage Avengers books. It's just not been something that I've been attracted to for whatever reason. It just something about it isn't appealing to me. So I haven't been jumping onto it, but that was their hard push. Oh, he's on the Avengers. He's on a dark Avengers team, right? He's on a brutal, fighty Avengers team. But I was like, that's not what the Avengers are about. So it's like, they could have called it Force Works and I would have bought it.
Right.
I'd be into it if you had called it Force Works or whatever else. Like, could have brought back Strike Force name or whatever. Like, there's so many fucking other things you could have called it, but like, oh, it's Savage Avengers. I was like, that doesn't make any sense. So the fact that they pushed that so hard, like, but he was doing good stuff, right? He showed up in this in that Iron Man storyline. So the fact that he was there and doing good shit, to me signaled he was good. So then I will say his accepting the Beyond deal was misguided, right? It was a misguided attempt to like bring himself back into the public domain and into the public eye as a good dude. But then the whole nonsense of like, oh, he like doesn't remember everything and like they have his memories in a computer or whatever the fuck. All of that shit. I was like, why? Why is any of this fucking necessary? Now, granted, the Beyond Corporation is evil. We already know this. We've been knowing this since fucking Next Wave.
Right.
Like, and we know, there's just no question in my mind about it, that the Beyond storyline from Spider-Man, which is the Beyond Corporation, the Beyond storyline right now from Avengers, which is Avengers Beyond with the same exact Beyond logo. Those are almost certainly leading to a new Secret Wars event, to tie into the movie Secret Wars. I'm fully believing that. So the fact that this is all happening now, which again, editorial fucking nonsense.
Yeah.
And because it like ended and like they finished it, and then it's like, oh, there's nothing left there. You've just left a chasm. And I was like, what the fuck? I was so mad because I was like, now he's an even more bad guy. What the shit is happening? Like that was completely unnecessary. Did nothing. Literally, the only positive thing to come out of Dark Web and him being Chasm and all this shit is Jean and fucking Maddie making peace.
Yeah.
Which could have been resolved through a therapy session.
oh. That is our underlying theme of Rhett Conversations, in which we break down storylines of comics, is that everyone, most of this would be fine if there was just therapy available to all Marvel superheroes. Doc Samson is spread far too thin.
Yeah. We need to clone. Let's clone Doc Samson. Let's get 6 or 7 of him. 6 or 7 Doc Samsons, but like pre-Hulk. Just 6 or 7 Doc Samsons with a psychological degree.
Right?
Like that's it. We don't need fucking 30 Doc Samson Hulk dudes. We just need 30 Doc Samson psychologists to fucking have conversations with these motherfuckers, because seriously, the entire thing. Oh, I literally unleashed Limbo on Manhattan again because you have memories that I want. Yep. I can share them with you. Oh,
and I'm working with Madeline Pryor because clone's got a clone, yo.
Well, it's funny because it's like the exact, but they both had like the same impulse, right? She was mad at Jean and them because Jean has memories that she feels are rightfully hers. She did not get to raise her child. So she's like, why aren't those memories mine? Why don't I have those memories?
Right.
Because like I should have been the one to raise my child, but I got suckered in by Sinister and Sim and all this shit. And then Ben was mad at fucking Peter for some shit Peter didn't do.
Right.
For taking his memories. So like they had the same like impulse, like the same impetus for the act of it, but then just like the end of it was Maddie gets her shit resolved by Jean just being like, all right, well, here's these memories. Like, you're not going to get the emotions because I had the emotions. Here you go with the memories. You could see how he was raised. And she was like, oh, that's awesome. Cool. I'm satisfied.
Yeah, so right.
We can move on now. And Chasm's like, what do you mean? No, I'm still mad.
Yeah. Yep.
Like, it was such a fucking, it is, I think Dark Web is genuinely the ultimate expression of the fact that editorial demands multiple crossovers a year. And it is the ultimate expression of, we just need some shit to cross over books and make tie-in books so that people will buy them. That is literally, I think, the worst expression of it, because all of this could have been resolved. Like the Chasm storyline could have been resolved with Peter. There's absolutely no reason to involve Maddie or Limbo or anything like that. None of that shit is magical, or like none of that shit. So there's absolutely no reason to involve her. So all that could have been resolved in a Spider-Man book. You could do a Spider-Man crossover or whatever, involve Silk, involve Spider-Woman. Like they do that shit all the time. But like they didn't want to do that. They wanted to involve the X-Men because they always want to leech off the X-Men for selling books. Oh, if something else isn't selling as good as we want to, put an X-Men in it. Add a Wolverine cameo. That'll fucking sell some books. Like it's fucking frustrating. And the fact that they keep getting further and further away from, because like having Ben back as a hero, I was like, bet. The fact that he was like a corporate stooge, I was like, this is fucking silly. Like, I don't like this. And then he found out that they were bad. And I was like, all right, cool. Now we're going to get the redemption. Like, he's going to kick their ass. And then his memories get fucking kicked out. And then, he doesn't remember who he is. And he blames Peter Parker for it. And I was like, God fucking damn it.
So, just doing some quick numbers. How many issues and how long Ben Reilly was a hero versus how many issues and how long he's been a villain?
What is this?
We have 31 months where he's a hero. Mm-hmm. Roughly May of 2014 to December of 2016, and then the Korvac storyline. Then we have him as a villain, which is 54 months. Which is
you mean since his return?
Pretty much, yeah.
But what about his original run as a hero?
Yeah, May of 2014 to December of 2016.
His original run in the 90s.
Oh, sorry. That was not meant as 2014. That should have been 1994. But
so you had 24 months just back then, at least, because I believe
that was 30 months.
30 months back then.
30 months back then, and then Korvac. Because as soon as he comes back, he's the Jackal, and he's the Jackal all the way until the end in Vegas, and then he disappears for a while. He shows up in Conan.
No. He's resolved the Jackal.
He's bad in Spider-Geddon too,
but he's good in the Spider-Verse. Are we doing math to figure out if mathematically he's just been a hero more? But that's not his fault. That's editorial's fault. I blame the Marvel editors.
My argument is he's never really been a good character. Like, he's never been written well. So
that's besides the point. That besides the point entirely. I say he is a hero, not that he's been written well all the time. I think he was written really well when he was Spider-Man in his era. Like, I don't think there was really anything wrong with the way he was written. I think his fights and certain things that he had with like characters he had never met before were interesting, because he was like, oh, this guy's mad at me because he thinks I'm the same dude, and he's like, but I am, but I'm also not, because I didn't fight him the first time around. So like,
have you seen the new Spider-Verse movie?
Yeah, it's fantastic. And yes.
And they do Ben Reilly perfectly in that movie.
They do Ben Reilly injustice. Injustice.
Voiced by Andy Samberg.
I don't give a shit who he was voiced by. I got the joke, and the joke was funny, but it's still disrespectful. Still disrespectful, because Ben Reilly deserves better. Ben Reilly is not the image of the 90s fucking era. They could have used
Kane.
Spider-Side.
Oh, that's true. Or Kane.
That's more the 90s than anything. Massive, muscle-bound, like, man, I saw it and I was like, I get it. I get the joke. I get the over explanation of dialogue. While what's on this wall? Something moved. Like audible fucking thought bubbles. I get it. I got the entire joke. It was perfect.
I was just sitting here brooding over my bad memories.
Yeah.
Oh, that one was especially bad.
Yeah, exactly. It was excellently done. It was the satire of the 90s era of comic books was perfect. I still think it was disrespectful. I think the character deserves better. I think the character has been done dirty, and he's constantly used as like this rinse and repeat. Oh, he's got a colorful history, so we could fuck with it some more just because we need someone for Peter to fight. Whereas,
so he's like the power girl of Marvel.
Yeah. She does telepathic therapy now. What the fuck does that mean? Oh, she can punch into people's thoughts. What the fuck does that mean, DC? Like, god damn. That's what I'm saying. Like, we just do, like, it's just the character that they just throw shit at, and they're like, all right, what's he doing this week? Which is what I feel like Gambit was for a long time.
Yes, I agree. And
he's a hero, but he's got a wife. You didn't know about the wife. He's actually murdered someone. He let someone die. Great issue.
Fantastic.
34. Great fucking issue. The like have the choice of the girlfriend and the brother. Great issue. I actually have that on my wife's table, one of the few fucking single issues that I have, and I was like, you should read this. Like, whenever you fucking get a chance, you should read this issue, because I think it's a great fucking issue. But like, that's another character where it was like all the time they'd just be like, suddenly he's got this secret and that secret, and like once the trial of Gambit happened, I was like, all right, cool, we're finally like, we have all cards on the table, as it were. And then, now he's possessed by a fucking spirit being that saved him from Antarctica.
That helped him get out of
Fucking hell, man. Like, and then it was like, and then now he's fighting himself from another universe with his power like ultimately expressed. Like, shit, man, that's crazy. And like, and then now you can see the future in cards, but he's blind. Like, it's just, he's a character that constantly gets like shit applied to him because they don't know what else to do, and it's dumb.
Now, I would argue, yes, that is very similar to Ben Reilly, but somehow the success rate is higher with Gambit.
Well, that's just because he's in more books, because he's in a team series. Like, yeah, he had his own book for a while, but he was also on a team at that time, and his book started after he came back to the team.
Right.
So like, he's off. By the way, Steve Scroce, those first issues, like those early issues with Steve Scroce art, Scroce, I don't know how to fucking pronounce it. Those first issues of that early 2000s Gambit run, so fucking good. So good. Like, just the perfect visual style for him. Like almost lanky, but still muscular, still like very energetic, lots of things happening. And I was like, this is the way, like when I read it, I was like, this is exactly how I feel Gambit sees things.
I agree.
So many things happening at the same time, but like always perfectly in control of the situation. Fucking love it. Like, that was such a great run. But like, yeah, and then it's like they ran that into the ground with him eventually fighting his alternate reality self, which like the
new son.
Yeah, it was the ultimate fallback tactic for anyone is multiverse.
Yeah.
Which is, I don't know if you watch Secret Galaxy, it used to be called Toy Galaxy on YouTube. Fantastic series. Dan Larson does a great job like revisiting old properties like toys and TV shows and all sorts of stuff. I think you get a kick out of it. But now, most recently, since everything all in the last 3 years in TV has been multiverse, now he has this ongoing gag where he talks about anything, like we talked about the turtles, and he's like, and go back to that old plot device, multiverse. And that's his whole thing. And I was like, that's exactly what it is, because now it's just like, how do we fix this? Multiverse.
Yeah.
Like, so everything. It's like when he talked about the Teen Titans show, they eventually multiversed, crossed over. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles multiverse.
Yeah, but that episode was fucking amazing.
What, the Turtles?
The Turtles, yeah. I haven't watched much of the Nickelodeon, like TMNT when they had it out, but I have watched that episode. That episode is dope.
There are certain things that you will watch that are not like, it's just like I like stopped watching this XYZ. Like, I stopped watching Power Rangers for years, and then I found out about Forever Red, and I saw a clip from Forever Red.
Is that the Netflix one that just dropped?
No. Forever Red was like the 15th anniversary, and it was all the Red Rangers up to that point.
Huh.
Yeah, and it was them versus Serpentera, which made no fucking sense. Serpentera looked like shit because it was like early 2000 CG. It was garbage. But I was like, I kind of want to fucking watch that. Like, so then I had to watch, because I think it was in season for Wild Force, and Wild Force is when I fucking gave up, because I was like, why does everyone have 3 fucking Zords? I don't know what's going on. I was like, I'm so fucking confused. Why don't we just have more Rangers? Why does everyone have multiple Zords and all the shit combines in different ways? I was so confused. So I was like, fuck it. But like, when I saw that, I was like, well, shit, now I gotta watch Wild Force. So like, and like shit like that, where it's like, there's certain things that like similar thing happened. I like shotgunned the whole series, because when I was like, I gotta watch Wild Force, I said, fuck it, I'll watch everything again.
Right.
I shotgunned everything, got through that. It was a great episode. The show was okay, but that episode was fucking great. And like all the other shows were pretty good. And then I hit fucking what's the most Megaforce, and the fucking just the cheesiest dialogue. Like, I was like, how did we reset to like this feels like it was written in 92.
Oh no.
Like, I was just like, what the and I couldn't. So like, I watched like 5 or 6 episodes, and I was like, I just can't. I cannot.
Listen, we are in the golden age of television. You can't do this.
That's what I'm saying. Like you just, there's better writing out there. I don't know what the fuck you guys are doing. So I said, fuck it. And then like they did a season 2, they called it Super Mega Force, and they had the like 30-year or 25-year reunion. And it was like every Power Ranger ever in the scene. Fucking Green Ranger takes his helmet off and he's like, "What's up, guys? We're here to help." And I was like, shit, now I'm gonna watch this crap too.
Oh,
That's what I'm saying, man. So like there's always something where it's like they that's exactly what happened with Titans. Did you watch Titans?
I watched okay. So I worked at Bandai in Southern California, and I worked in the collectible card game division.
Nice.
And we put out the original Teen Titans, not Teen Titans Go, but we put out the original Teen Titans card game.
Okay.
So I, in order to work on that, had to watch every single episode of the original Teen Titans, and actually really enjoyed it. Teen Titans Go, I watched one episode and I was like, no, this is all the stuff. This is all the parts of anime that turn me off, that I don't like.
Agreed.
So
Fully agreed. Yeah, I didn't like that. But did you watch the live action show, the most recent one?
Oh, Titans. Yeah, I have watched that. Yes.
So I got to season 3 and Bruce Wayne fucking kills Joker.
Kills the Joker.
And I was like,
throws the knife down to Dick and says, be a better Batman. The crowbar, and says, be a better Batman. I'm like, God, he's like, fuck yes.
He's like, and that's the thing. For me, that was the eject button.
I loved it. I loved it.
He said, here, be a better Batman. Gotham is yours now. And he leaves. And I was like, fuck this show. Because to me, that means that Batman was the weakest fucking Batman ever depicted in any fucking piece of media. Because that means that Joker's many crimes and many murders over the years, no big deal. Jason's death, no big deal. Guilt trip from Dick, all right, fine, I'll kill a guy. Fuck you. Fuck you. What the fuck? I was so mad. I was like, fuck this. Ejected. Did not watch the rest of season 3. Season 4 premiered. I fucking saw shit online, didn't care. And then they're like, on Twitter, I'm scrolling and it's like Gar in the multiverse. And I was like, shit. Multiverse is my shit. So I was like, fuck, I gotta watch the rest of that goddamn season. And it was as bad as I was expecting. Because like that show was not a Titan show. That show was Dick Grayson and friends. That show was like Batman and Robin and other Robin and friends. Like that show was not Titans. And that shit pissed me off because it's like the Titans that I read the most of, the first Titans I ever read, the first like independent Titans comic that I ever read was like Secret Files and Origins 1997 or 1998, which was like, I think they were doing, they called it, I forgot what they called it, like Heroes Over, like World of Heroes or something like that. It was a thing where they were doing a bunch of special issues where they introduced new characters from different parts of the world.
Okay.
And this was one of the stories in this. They went to Japan and they introduced the character of Bushido, which he was created by and drawn by someone who I have recently come to find out is a piece of fucking shit person. So like, again, going back to our earlier conversation, it's one of, you gotta fucking pull it off. Like you gotta pull back. Justiniano. I don't give a shit. Fuck him. Justiniano. But what's really fucking annoying is I like took time and I talked to that dude because he did the Creeper like right before Infinite Crisis, and he had like a dispute with the editorial or whatever. He's like, that's why I didn't, like he talked to like on MySpace, I think this was back in the day. He's like, oh yeah, he's like, I didn't sign the last cover as like a silent protest because like the decisions they made or whatever, because I think the last issue is drawn by someone else, because he had a dispute with them, which like shit at this point now I'm like, maybe depending on what that dispute was about, knowing what you are now, maybe DC was in the right. Like, right. I just fucking, that's why, like you said earlier, you gotta, you at this point you have to separate. But yeah, so like I love that character Bushido. I like that character, the style of him, really a big fan. So I was like, this is a dope cover, I'm gonna pick this up. And I read the issue, and that's the first. So like fucking Flamebird and Gar, like this like weird smattering of like all sorts of like the wide cast of characters of Titans was my first exposure. It's like all these fucking weird kids, like Snapper Carr was in the issue, like all these fucking weird motherfuckers from all over the fucking country and the world. And I was just like, oh shit, like I didn't realize that's what Titans was about. Like that's kind of cool. So then the first ongoing was fucking Jeff Johns. Like after Young, because I actually liked Young Justice too. So I was like, the evolution of Young Justice into Graduation Day, which is a horrible fucking story. But like them literally graduating into the Teen Titans, I was like, this is fucking cool. Like I like this progression. And to me, forward motion in storylines is what I'm looking for. So like one of the worst tropes in comic books for me is the reset of Peter Parker to broken poor again and alone.
Yeah.
Oh,
no, I agree.
Poor and alone Peter Parker again. Fuck you. Like I hated that. That's why when Dan Slott came in and he like slowly built him up. Oh, like he's got this job at Horizon Labs and there's all this shit. And I was like, oh, this is fucking cool. Like now he's got a job and like people respect him. And like, oh, his boss even knows that he makes shit for Spider-Man. Oh, this and like this is he's a fucking collaborator now. He can you're like, oh no, Peter had to go take care of some shit. You know, like he's got someone to cover for him. Like I was so excited. And then it's like Secret Wars. He comes back, he's got a company. I was like, to me, that made sense because it was like Horizon Labs. He built his own company, moved on, right?
Yeah.
Makes sense to me. And then it's like Nick Spencer comes in and he's like, fuck your toy set. Fuck your Lego castle. Steps all over it and says, no. Now you have to delete the entire company because of my shitty fucking Secret Empire story.
Right. And by the way, you tied the copyright of Spider-Man into your company. And so another company could just come around and buy
it. Which I fucking hated that too, because that was a lot of they played with that a lot because it was like the ownership of the Baxter building.
Yeah.
They played with that because of that whole thing. They played with the fucking you copyrighted Spider-Man, therefore I was like, what the fuck? First of all, why would you do that?
Your real villain is bureaucracy.
Yeah, right. Red tape. That should be a variant cover of just like red tape all over it, nothing else. Just Spider-Man being like, oh.
Fucking.
But like, and that's what I'm saying. Like with all that, like you build him up, and then it's like, oh, we're gonna reset him. Oh, he's like a respected member of the community, the educational community. Oh, well, a new AI algorithm can find if you plagiarize someone's work. We're gonna check your shit, which you wrote while you were a literal different person. This is actually copied from Otto Octavius's work. And he's like, well, I can't tell them that I was literally Otto Octavius for a few months. Hated that shit. It's like, oh, and then it's like, oh, he's with Mary Jane, and then they break up, and it's like I remember when they were talking about them getting a divorce before they actually did that in the comics. In Wizard, I remember reading an interview with Joe Quesada or somebody. I feel like it was Joe Quesada though, where he like mentioned, oh, like people can't relate to like married superheroes. And
that was 1,000% Joe.
And I was like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah.
One of the most famous superheroes everywhere is the Fantastic Four, and their two core members are married
and have kids,
children. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? And it's like Superman's been married for 40 fucking years at this point. Like, what? Like, none of this shit makes sense. So when they did New 52 and they weren't married, I was like, this is dumb. Like they've been married, so like, why did they do this? And just like when they did Brand New Day, that literally made me stop reading comics. That's the insane part of it. Like, made me stop reading Spider-Man entirely, because at that point I was like, I'm catching up, like I'm reading everything. I was running a comic shop at the time, so like I was front line for everything. And they're like, oh, the fucking deal with Mephisto, and they're gonna be divorced. And literally the last issue I read was the issue before they did that. Before One More Day or whatever it was. I was like, nope.
One More Day, and then the follow-up to that was One Moment in Time, which the acronym for it is OMIT.
Yeah. I was like, nope, I'm not doing it. I'm not reading this. Like they had the biggest buildup. It was like we had the baddest ass moment of Peter Parker in that storyline right before, where Aunt May got shot and he went to Fisk and he beat his monkey ass in front of everyone. He beat the shit out of him. And then he put his fucking this is when he still had organic web shooter, put his shit up against his face. And he's like, I could fucking do this. I could fill your lungs. You die before you could even draw the next breath. And he's like, if you fucking come from me and mine again, that's what's going to happen. And I was like, I am loving this. And they're like, oh yeah, then we're going to reset him and he's not going to be married anymore. And I was like, this is the dumbest shit. Because it was dumb when Mary Jane got kidnapped for like 17 fucking months in the early 2000s and Peter Parker started dating again. I was like, it was dumb then, it's going to be dumb now. Like, it was so stupid. I was so fucking pissed off about that. And then like all the shit that they kind of did with Civil War, like the side effects of Civil War, I was like, oh, you're launching 7 new fucking books with new teams and shit with different states. I was like, this is too much. This is way too much shit. You're resetting Peter. I'm like, I'm uninterested in that entirely. So I stopped reading Spider-Man 100%. After that, I don't even think until they reset the Avengers post Civil War, because the like Mighty Avengers, I kind of read that. I really just wasn't into this like government stooge Avengers. I just wasn't into it. So like for me, I read New Avengers and I read X-Men, and the X-Men were dealing with all the fucking decimation shit. Like that was a whole fucking era. Like I liked Peter Parker. Like I like progression. So Peter Parker, for me, I'm a member of the Make Peter Parker Married Again group. Get him married, stable relationship, make him have kids. I want to see Peter Parker become the Jay Garrick of the Marvel Universe. He still has powers, he's still capable, but he's got a fucking life to live. He's going to go off and live his life. And if a new Spider person shows up, if a Spider Boy, if you will,
you got Miles. You got Miles.
Well, you got Miles, but also you've got this seasoned, like Spider Boy could be Miles' sidekick, and you could have the seasoned guy come in and he could be the mentor figure in Spider Boy.
Yeah.
Right, because that's what they had in with Impulse, right? Jay Garrick was in Impulse as a supporting mentor character. Cobalt Blue, I think, was even in that as like a supporting mentor character. So like all of this shit, to me, like you have the examples of these characters and the fact that they don't take any of that. And like, it's just like, oh, we're just going to copy designs here and there and like kind of histories, but not the actual good storytelling aspects. Like Jay Garrick is popular to this day. Why? Because he's a mainstay of the community. But guess what? He was the first Flash.
Right.
Peter was the first Spider-Man. Why can't we just have the Miles be the Spider-Man right now? And Peter can be the mentor. Like,
yeah. Because change is something that should happen, but unfortunately it splits the already fragile comic book buying community, because DC and Marvel aren't trying to make graphic novels, they're trying to make individual issues. And in my opinion, that is a market that if they don't adapt, they will die.
I agree. I absolutely agree. I think they need to be taking a lot of hard lessons from manga.
Yeah.
A volume of manga is like it's like a trade.
Yeah.
It's a shit ton of fucking story. And if you want to make single issue stories that build into something bigger, you can, but I think they need to bring back like in the early 2000s, I want to say like 2002, there was a title called X Universe. And X Universe collected like 3 or 4 issues from the X-Men line of books from like 6 months ago or whatever. And it was like what kind of feels like that they're doing with the base trades of the current X-Men runs. They they had the house, they had the Reign of X and Destiny of X and all these things that collect all the stories from a couple months, and that's the trade. And all, like, that's how they should be doing this stuff.
Absolutely.
I actually thought I thought they were just heading down that path, because they released, I think they called it Cross-Gen Tales or Tales from Cross-Gen or something. And it was like all 4 first issues from the original Cross-Gen number 1s. And I was like, this would be the way to bring back Cross-Gen. Make it an anthology series, reissue all the old books. And I mean, by the time you get to like the 40s, you're talking 4 years of comics.
Mhm.
I'll buy them because they're in prestige format, so I can put them on a shelf. I don't have to wait for trades at that point. Like it
We
may
also so we also have print on demand now. So there is no reason for any uh comic book to be out of print anymore. There's no reason for
fully fucking agreed,
any
man.
graphic novel to be out of print. If I want a Hulk, graphic like a certain storyline from the 70s, I should be able to go to marvel.com or one of their affiliates, be it Diamond, be it Drive Through Comics, and I should be able to say, I want this story, I want it printed, and I want it shipped to my house, and they'd be like $30. I'd be like, done.
I'm telling you, it's not hard. None of this shit is hard anymore.
No,
They don't have to buy 200,000 copies of something and put it out on the shelves.
no.
They don't have to do that anymore. And even so, even if you do, let's say for some reason they absolutely have to pre-order it. Cool. Do a pre-sale campaign.
Yeah.
Not Kickstarter, because I don't want Marvel. I did a whole article in my last issue. I don't want Marvel or DC or even like Image on Kickstarter. I think that needs to be small press and like small shit only, because
That's how I got Indiegogo. Indiegogo is how I got Expendables Go to Hell, written by Sylvester Stallone.
That's ridiculous. Every word that just came out of your mouth is ridiculous.
Yep, and I kickstarted that shit.
But like that's what I'm saying. Like they small shit like that, and but honestly, even like that, like Sylvester Stallone, he could have done that all through PayPal, and you would have been able to make enough money. Like, like when they did Berserker for Keanu Reeves, they did it on Kickstarter, which like I backed it. I'm not gonna lie to you, but like if they had done it on their own website through their own system and not had a middleman, we would have all still gone because it's Keanu Reeves making a comic book, and it sounds interesting.
But by going through this other site, there was a lot of word of mouth, and that's why the media rights have already been picked up, and they're already making that. Yeah,
exactly, because they're leeching the audience from Kickstarter. They're leeching the audience, and that's the problem I have with it. But if like for realistically, like you said, if me and let's say you and 7 other fucking people really want to read the last 5 issues or whatever of the 1997 Kazar series that has never been collected in trade paperback,
right?
That was not done by I think it was at Andy Kubert, and I think it was Mark Waid that wrote it. It wasn't done by them. They collected the Mark Waid Kubert run in 2 volumes, but then they also ran the series for another like 4 or 5 issues.
Okay.
If we want that in a trade, why shouldn't we be able to get it? Make it so that we can just order that shit.
There is no reason why we should not be able to print on demand.
Like I want to give you more money, but you refuse to let me. Like it doesn't make sense. It's like they're creating this scarcity model, which doesn't make sense because it's like people go through shit, right? Sometimes people have fucking floods, and like shit happens to their books. Sometimes people just lose shit. Sometimes people move and something gets left behind or something gets damaged and they need to replace a book. Why can't I fucking reorder? Like, why is it so fucking like, why did it take me so goddamn long to find Eve of Destruction in hardcover in the omnibus of X-Men Eve of Destruction? And I had to pay almost $200 for it. Why is that out of print?
Yeah, absolutely.
This is stupid.
When WandaVision came out, they didn't have a bunch of the backstory stuff like Avengers Disassembled and stuff out of print.
What the fuck?
Why? Especially when you have a large media event that's happening that's going to bring all these people. Yeah. Warrior Nun, when the show came out,
it was impossible to find.
It was impossible to find. Yeah.
Like the fact that dude's been around for so long and that he hasn't kickstarted, like just kickstart and have a stock of trades.
Not even that. I mean, the print on demand market is so it's everywhere now. I work for a company that does it for training, for corporate training documents. You go to our site, you can read PDFs, but if you want a physical copy, you can order one. and you'll get one within 2 weeks. Because we have a distributor that once you hit your order, we take our little bit, we send it to the publisher prints you off a copy because they have all of it sitting in their files, and they ship it to you. There is no reason that that cannot be done.
None.
For comic books.
That's why it blows my mind, especially like with drive-through being mostly like a print on demand thing. I go to drive-through and I look at certain stuff and I was like, oh, this is cool. And it's like, oh, it's 150 pages. You can buy a PDF or nothing. There's no print option. I was like, why the fuck not? Why can't? Why? This doesn't make sense.
Because it's up to at that point, it's up to the publishers.
No, I know, but that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like it's on here. You've done half the work already. They literally have the file.
Right.
Just check the box.
If you go over to the RPG side of drive-through, there are print on demand books.
Yeah. I've seen. I got some stuff from there from one of the campaigns. Like they had like an RPG thing, so I ended up being on that side too. But like, it's it blows my mind that in an era where it is the easiest thing now to get a book printed, that it is this hard to get certain books.
Yep.
Like insane to me. Like I get if you want to reorganize it. Like I would not be mad at Marvel because I just picked it up. I absolutely would not be mad at Marvel if they hired me or someone equally better than whoever the fuck did it the first time to re-put together the House of M omnibus, because it's collated really fucking poorly in my opinion.
I agree.
And so I was like, if they were to be like, hey, somebody else edit this together and make it make more sense, then it would and if they were like, all right, we've redone it and we're republishing it, I'd be like, all right, bet that makes sense to me. That to me makes sense. I don't need but if you're not going to do that, just keep hitting print. Just keep hitting print.
Well, then you deal with stock, you deal with, all of that.
But I'm saying like on orders, like per order. Like somebody orders, hit print. If a comic shop puts in an order for 2 fucking omnibuses of House of M,
absolutely.
There's no reason why the company that you had it printed at can't just hit print. Or you find a company that can do it on demand in the States so that I'm sure these were printed in China or whatever. And that's
because everybody thinks that the stupid fucking Disney Vault plan still works in 2023. If we lock it away for 10 years and then release it, all these people will want it. No, all the people that wanted it have pirated it by now.
Yep. Yeah. I'll be very honest. I'm happy to do this on camera, and I'm happy to do this. I'll do this on live. I'll go to fucking Disney and tell them in person. The moment I found out that they pulled the Mighty Ducks show off Disney Plus, I had to pick up the fucking Jolly Roger and wave that motherfucker, because guess what? I wanted to watch that. You don't get to tell me when I get to watch that. I pay you every fucking month so that I can watch shit on demand. On my demand, not fucking yours. Right. So I am going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to watch that show when the fuck I want to. Whether I do it through your service or not, that's entirely up to you.
Right. No, I will say that I make an attempt to stream, to buy, to purchase easily. Once you make that difficult for me, then I weigh do I want to put in the effort to get this? Did I want it enough that I'm going to put in the effort to search? And if the answer to that is yes, I will find it one way or another. You could have gotten my money. Yep. And this goes for comic books. This goes for novels. This goes for all sorts of things. Like up to and including, I will go to Amazon, and if it is in print and in a reasonable price, if I'm buying it directly from a publisher, like, for example, I will also support secondhand bookstores if they haven't jacked up the price, like criminally. Right. But the internet is an option now. We've been doing this since Napster. And we've been doing this since LimeWire,
and it's no longer the old scan copies and shitty websites where you have to click through page by page anymore. Now there are organized, dude. I didn't even know. So I didn't even know, like the way I acquire books when I want to get to them before they're in trade, is been the same for like 5 years at least, if not more. So I don't go to websites anymore. Well, I saw conversation on Twitter and TikTok and all these places where people are like, well, here's how you can get it legally, right? You know, you could buy, you could subscribe, you could all this shit. You could go through your library. That people are giving all these options, and then they say, if you cannot get those, if you do not have ways to access those things, there is websites. And I was like, oh, really? Like in 2023, there's still websites? Because I remember in the early 2000s when I first discovered scanned comics, which was an insane notion for me. I found there used to be a site, I think it was literally called xmenscans.net.
Yep.
So like, and like they would be going, they would like be relaunching the website every few months because Marvel would just shut that shit down because like it was, the fight was that hard for them. Like they were trying to get every dollar they could out of people, which I get. But it's like at the same time,
if they're
like
trying to get every dollar that they can out of people, why not think of the ways that are right there?
Make the shit available. Make the shit available.
Why? You know what? At that point, you know what you could do? You could make your own graphic novel. I want Gambit 1 through 3, and I want Rogue.
Oh my God,
1 through 3, and then I want X-Men Gold in there, and then I want, tell me.
I would make the ultimate fucking Age of Apocalypse omnibus.
Tell me how much this will cost me. I have money. I would love to give it to you. A print-on-demand model will make you money.
It's silly. It's so silly. Like toys, I get. Toys,
sure.
Much harder process.
Yeah. Also limited in the comic book market has been dead since the death of Superman when it comes to like collectability.
You would think so, but that is the number one thing I've seen on the rise in the last 2 years. The number one thing I've seen more of than ever before, like ever since the 90s, is people buying shit for collection, like for collectability, for value.
Like things that are coming out now.
Yeah.
Because
insane, dude. It blows my fucking mind. People are like talking about, oh, this movie's coming out, so you can pick up this comic, boom, boom, or this issue's coming out, this number 1 is coming out, that's gonna be the first appearance of this. And like the fact that people right now are losing their shit over Spider-Boy because he might show up in a fucking Across the Spider-Verse. Like, no one's reading the comics, they are just buying the shit. Like, it's crazy to me. Like, people are still buying and they're slabbing shit all the time. Slabbing used to be like a niche market.
Yeah.
Dude, if I had stock in CGC right now, I'd be doing great. They're selling more than they've ever sold. It's so nuts to me. It's so, because I remember when CGC first started, when slabbing first started being a thing, there was a lot of talk of like, people would tell me like, oh, like we slabbed the same book 3 times. We got it back at a 9.4. We cracked it open, sent the same book back. It went to a 9.8. And then we got it, do the same thing again and ended up in a 9.7. So like we got 3 different grades. So it was like people spent $90 to prove a point. Now people spend $90 to slab one book.
That's crazy to me because
I'm telling you.
But comic book runs are so bloated now too.
Agreed.
Like comparatively to when it used to be like a collectible market, now they're going to do runs of at minimum 100,000 copies of whatever's coming out of Marvel or DC. That's just the first run.
But they're not though. They're not though. The highest selling comic of recent times that was in like close to 100,000. It didn't sell 100,000. No, I take it back. It did sell more than 100,000. It was The Wedding of Batman. And people were pissed because obviously it
didn't happen. But
but like the pre-sale of it was so high. But like the average numbers, and granted, this is pre everybody separating out from Diamond, and really Diamond being the only actual source of data. The numbers were like in the 50s. Like 120,000 copies was a high selling book. I think the Amazing Spider-Man, one of the early Amazing Spider-Mans might have been the last Marvel book to be like actually reported, and I think it was like 140, but it drops fast. Like the list, because I think of February or April 2021 or 22 is like the last time that they actually had like diamond reports of actual sales numbers. I think that's when DC was like deuces were out.
Right.
And it was very much like it was like 120, 120, 120, 90, 80, 60. Like then we're sub 50. Like it was so crazy to me to see, oh, the top 25 ranges from like 150,000 sold to like 85 sold. 85,000.
Well, I'm not talking about sell. I'm talking about print.
Yeah, but that's the thing. They're not printing more than is ordered. They're printing a few more. Like, you know, if it's $150,000 copies ordered, they're not printing more than 200,000 copies, if that. Maybe 175,000, because nobody is expecting to order more. Because that's why right now what happened, what was it that just went to second print for no goddamn reason? It was something, it was a Spider-Boy issue. I think it was like the first appearance of Spider-Boy, because it was like they didn't set it up as a big thing, so people didn't order it. It was just like one more issue of Spider-Man, because it was like they did like a Spider-Verse thing, and at the end of it, like, oh, suddenly Spider-Boy. And they ended up going to a second print. And Dan Slott's up here like, oh, this is how many issues it's sold and blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, it's because you have 43 fucking variants now. And people buy variant covers. People aren't buying the comics. People are buying artwork. Like like that's the thing. He's been fighting for this real hard. It's kind of hilarious. He's like, oh, this book sold X amount more than this. I'm like, but you also have to compare that. Was it Amazing One? The new Amazing One had like, I think it was like 9 variant covers, and his spectacular superior one, I think that's what he was comparing it to, I think had 3 variants, and 9 fucking variants are 2 different things.
Right.
Those variants help with the sales. I don't care how much you want to be like, oh, the story or whatever. It's not the story. The story's not helping the fucking sales. It's the 9 variant covers. It's Art Gem being one of the most popular fucking cover artists in existence right now. It's like Alex Ross Art Gem. Like Alex Ross is doing so much more work now than he has done in the last 20 fucking years.
Right.
Like, well, he's doing
J. Scott Campbell.
He's got his own line too. Like they print a couple thousand books just for him to have. They literally print him books, which I thought was crazy. I didn't know about that. I happened to end up on his website I was trying to like prove a point, and I ended up on his website, and it's like he has a variant of whatever XYZ book, but it's his variant. No one else sells it. And I was like, that's insane.
Wow.
So like they print 2,000 copies, which proves that they can print small runs.
Yeah.
They print 2,000 copies of just his artwork for him to sell on his website. Like that's insane.
Fucking nuts.
And it sells out. It sells out.
I stand corrected on the collectability part of it.
It's wild because it sells out not at like normal variant prices, at like $30 a pop, $50 a pop. Like that dude is rich off his art, and like kudos to him. Like
absolutely, if you can make it, do it. But he's also adapted to an internet structure, an internet society, and he's found out the way to make it work.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
J. Scott Campbell doesn't make comic books anymore. J. Scott Campbell sells titties.
Right. Yeah.
J. Scott Campbell figured out that dudes like buying titties and women like buying titties. So like. That's what J. Scott Campbell sells, and that's what he wants to do. I have no judgment. I have no shame. Like it's, if you have a market to sell to,
right,
sell to that market. I don't give a shit. Rob Liefeld still makes money because stupid motherfuckers, still buy Rob Liefeld books. Right. But like Rob Liefeld doesn't make fucking comics. Rob Liefeld sells covers. Because I guarantee you, there's not a single person on the internet talking about how Deadpool Bigger and Badder, where the fuck the title is of it right now, is good, and how the story is so fucking rich. No one's fucking talking about that. They're like, this cover is dope. Rob Liefeld.
You can't say nobody on the internet. I'm just saying.
I genuinely do not think there is a single person who genuinely believes that stories he writes are good.
I
have to
think
suffer Rob
you
Liefeld.
underestimate the amount of Rob Liefeld bootlickers.
I don't. I have the ultimate W on the internet as far as I'm concerned. I essentially, to Rob Liefeld's face, told Rob Liefeld off, and it was the most glorious fucking moment. Somebody posted this thing in response to him or some shit, and it's like, oh, you made the best characters, right? And he posted a picture of, it was like Cable, Deadpool, and Domino. And I just commented, he was like, oh, you make the best characters. And I was like, he had nothing to do with making these characters good.
Yeah.
He then jumps in the conversation and is like, oh, I get paid off these characters. I created these characters, blah, 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 blah. Like, and I was like, we get it, Rob. You threw the winning touchdown in high school. What the fuck are you doing these days? And he's like, what the fuck are you doing? I was like, really though? Quite honestly, what do you do? What do you make? Because I'm not talking about the pittance that Marvel throws your way. Not talking about the scraps. What do you make? You are 55 years old, infinite fucking reach, and you don't even own your own comic. It took you a decade to produce one comic book. Do you know about this?
I heard about it.
The Brigade Kickstarter. I literally 2 days ago was on Twitter, and somebody's like, I finally got my Brigade fucking shit. And I was like, this is insane. Over a fucking decade now, people are just getting their rewards. Get the fuck out of here. You have infinite money at this, essentially, in this comic space. You have infinite money, you have infinite reach and infinite fucking contacts, and you do nothing. And you can't even produce a single comic book. Like, that's the thing, is like, he rests on this, oh, I created these characters. Like, you created them, but other people made them good.
Yeah.
The shit about Cable, the shit about Deadpool, the shit about Domino, all of those things that are cool about them, other people wrote. Joe Kelly wrote fucking Deadpool. Joe Kelly or Joe Casey, one of the two, wrote Deadpool, and that's who made him cool and interesting and the way he is now. Like, that's who made him that. Rob's Deadpool was a little snarky and had a couple like generic pop culture references. That was about it. But he was like a villain. He was a bad guy.
He was a Deathstroke knockoff.
He was fully a Deathstroke knockoff. And then Joe Kelly comes in, writes 50 fucking issues or whatever of in your face, just wilding out Deadpool. And that's who people remember. Rob Liefeld's art is not who people think of when they think of Deadpool. They think of Ed McGuinness because he drew those first like 10 issues or whatever. Because that's the fucking shit that they remember. That's when they were hooked on Deadpool. Not fucking 1992 Rob Liefeld art. Not even 1992 Joe Mad art. And I love Joe Mad. And I like, when I see, was it Deadpool Blood and something? I forget what it was called. Like, first mini that Joe Mad drew. I was like, oh yeah, like early Joe Mad art. Like, it's like weirdly goofy. It's like not as sharp as he ended up being, like the more anime stuff that he brought into it. So It's this like goofy kind of, everyone's really like overly muscular, but like also really lanky. Like, it's kind of goofy art from back then. And it is what it is, but like, no one thinks of those things. No one thinks of John Romita Jr. Cable.
Right. Like, well, and speaking of goofy art, one of the things that I'm going to explain to somebody for Rec Conversations this season is going to be Heroes Reborn. So,
bro, I just had we had a whole live about it. This Heroes Reborn as a topic is so hot right now. It's so crazy. It's the fucking
Captain America with titties.
It wasn't the first time he did it.
I know.
I didn't know about that because I was listening to the Wizards podcast and they were like, oh, here's this ad for Thunder Agents. And he did it twice on that ad. And I was like, oh my God, I didn't know that. I did not know that. That's fucking, it's crazy. That's such a, oh my God, Heroes Reborn here, and all the shit behind the scenes on that. And like, that was apparently, because I'm, like I said, I'm literally 1996 on that podcast. So they're talking to people who were there. They're talking to like editors from the magazine and everything. And the fact that Silvestri, that's when Top Cow split off as a separate company, like right around that time, and it was Rob's fault. There was a clash between Rob and Silvestri, and it's like, oh my god, this shit is fucking hilarious. Like to see to just kind of like I'm basically getting behind the scenes for like the life I lived. It's like I because I didn't like do outdoor shit. Like I was not a popular kid. I wasn't hanging out with anybody on the weekend. I read comics. I watched cartoons.
Yeah.
So like the shit that I saw, like they're like, oh, Wildcats is coming out. This is when the Wildcats comic cartoon was announced. I'm like, I fucking love Wildcats. It's a great intro. One of my favorite intros of all time. Like it's like that's the life I lived. So like I'm literally just getting behind the scenes. Like, oh, this is there was going to be a Gen 13 movie, which eventually got made but never released. And like
I think I have that somewhere in my.
I think there's a Cyberforce. I think it was a Cyberforce or something else. I saved it, but there was like another sample that they made, like a test reel for another cartoon that never got made from Image. Like just all this shit, and it's like every year. At that time, every year, Rob Liefeld was not even every year, goddamn every month. Rob Liefeld was like, "Oh, I'm making this movie with this person, making this movie with this person," because there was a comic called The Mark, and I had vividly remembered Will Smith being attached to a comic book, and I thought for the longest time it was a book called The Mage.
Yeah, I remember the Mage Mage.
Because it was like the dude with like a lightning bolt on his chest.
Yeah.
For the longest time, I thought that was the guy. Because I connect, but it's a book called The Mark, and it was a Rob Liefeld thing. And he apparently, across the course of like 4 different issues of Wizard, said he was working with no less than 4 different actors on making this project.
So I did a quick search just now, and I found that not only is the Gen 13 animated movie on YouTube, somebody remastered it.
Yep, it's upscaled. It actually looks pretty decent. Like it looks like it came out in the early 2000s. Like for what it is,
I will be watching that later.
Yep, yeah. I've been had that for a while. been had that one for a while. That's a great one. I still haven't watched it, but because I've got so many fucking things to watch. The list is, like you said, the list is fucking gargantuan.
Golden age of television, man. Golden age of media in general.
That has been my stance for the longest time. I will say, I think the most recent X-Men era, like Hickman on, has been my absolute favorite era of X-Men. Just because a lot of the like goofy shit that writers kept like falling back on before was resolved. Like the fucking love triangle, Scott, Jean, and Wolverine. They were Hickman resolved that in the way that I came up with like 8 months earlier, because I had the realization as I was reading one of the comics. It was like Jean had died and come back, Scott had died and come back, or Wolverine had died and come back, and then Scott had died and come back. And then I was just like, as I was reading something, I thought of the term "till death do us part," and I was like, holy shit, their marriage is dissolved legally. Their marriage is dissolved, and I was like, oh, they should just put them in a fucking 3-way relationship, and then no one can fucking do bullshit. Don't touch my girl, Logan. Like I fucking hated that shit. I always hated that shit, even when I was younger. So I was like, they just make them in a fucking poly relationship. And then Hickman comes out with House of X, and in no uncertain terms, they're totally fucking. And I was like, yes, that's it. Now we don't ever have to deal with this again. And now they're fucking writing it all out. And spoiler alert if you haven't read Hellfire Gala 2023.
No, I've got it. I just haven't read it.
Okay, well, I'm not going to say it. But like some shit happens, and it's like the way they were setting it up, at least in the X-Men book most recently, it was like, oh, Jean and Scott are going to break up. And I was like, this is dumb. This is really dumb. Like people talk about something's forced. This was forced. It was like they had no problems, but it's like this fight over the Brood, which have been a literal parasitic fucking virus in their universe for 50 fucking years.
Right.
That's the hill this relationship dies on. Get the fuck out of here. Like I was like, it was Jerry Duggan that's writing X-Men. I was like, people were saying that on Twitter, and I was like, I'm so glad that Twitter agrees with me, because I'm like, this is the dumbest fucking thing. Oh, they're gonna break up over the fucking Brood. Shut the fuck up. And it's like, but it was written, I think, at the end of the last issue of X-Men before the gala. Like it was more written like we got some shit to work on. And I was like,
So,
okay, like if there's a conflict, they're gonna work some shit out that makes sense to me.
I will say I have enjoyed Hickman's stuff in the last few years of X-Men.
Yeah.
But as someone that on a podcast explains the plots of comics to people who have not read them, they are not accessible comics.
No. And it's like the things that you, especially like if you were to explain House of 10, Powers of 10 to someone.
Yeah. Which is episode 8 of Red Conversations. It is 2 hours worth of us being like, okay, you can't see this timeline, but the timelines are actually kind of important.
Yeah, it's like the timelines, like everything's important. And it's like if you don't know the backstory,
yeah,
Apocalypse showing up on the island and shaking hands with Xavier doesn't mean anything to you.
Right.
Like that was the moment for me where I turned the page and I was like, oh, shit is really different. Like you got Apocalypse with like, I think it was Omega Red and Sinister behind him. Yep. I was like, shit is different. Like that. And that's the thing for me is like, I that's forward progress to me. And even with everything that happened with this year's gala, I really hope that they do not use this as an excuse to like eventually like reset them. Cause they've done that a few times over the years. And it's like, oh, cause it's like, everything was great early 2000s, right? They got all the fucking tech and like that, you know, X-Men #1, they got the fucking hyper realistic Danger Room, and they've got the fucking tech, they've got the big war room with thousands of screens. Like they had all the shit, and it's like zero tolerance, wiped out. Zero. Yeah. And that's why it is one of my favorite lines from the X-Men 70. Wolverine says, it's all gone. The place smells of antiseptic nothing. Like down to the fucking microbial level. Bastion just wiped the place out. And then to me, it's like 2 issues later, Storm goes into the attic and like pops up a fucking floorboard to get her crown back from her old costume. And I was like, he was in here with nanotech and they didn't see the shit under the floorboards.
Right.
Y'all gotta hide more shit under the floorboards. Like, that's the place to hide shit, apparently. And then it's like they're fucking around on the like lake out back, and it's like, oh yeah, we left our original Blackbird in the lake. I was like, what the fuck do you mean you left your original Blackbird in the lake? What does that mean? How did
they don't rust?
Right? You know, Shi'ar fucking metals or something, you know. But that's what I'm saying. Like that, so like that was the one reset, and then it was like slow build up, decimation. Now there's almost no fucking mutants, less than 200. And I was like, shit,
198.
And it's like, can we fucking just let these motherfuckers live? Because it was like Utopia Isle. They built it up. They're separate. Yeah, there's all this fucking Norman Osborn Dark Reign shit happening, but Scott's like, we're a separate fucking nation. Get off my shit. Right. And I was like, that's how it should be. Perfect. I love this. And then it's like, oh, the Phoenix comes up and Avengers vs. X-Men, and now we've destroyed Utopia. The X-Men are hated again. Fuck.
The moment they named it Utopia, you had to know.
Right. So that's why I'm hoping with everything that happened, I hope they don't use this as an excuse to go back to like feared and hated and they're hunted and all this other shit. Not like we did that part of X-Men. Can we move forward? Like the fact that Sam Guthrie or Guthrie, I don't know how to pronounce his fucking name.
Guthrie is usually how I pronounce it.
The fact that Sam Guthrie has a wife and a child in a literal different part of the galaxy.
Yeah.
That's my favorite shit in X-Men. We have moved forward. We've moved so far from the, I don't know if I'm like good enough to be with the X-Men. And now he's like, my wife is a super guardian.
Yeah. Right.
My wife is a literal super powered alien fighter. Like that's to me, him being there at this level now and being a dad and also being like still kind of carefree, and him and Bobby's relationship kind of being brought back up to like they're best friends. They're like the best of friends. love all that shit. And it's like we are finally at a place with a lot of these characters that were like, all right, cool, we can actually move on. And that's why in I don't know if you read the most recent issue of Wolverine 35.
Mm-mm.
Um it again, it's like a reset moment that I don't love, because it's like bullshit, because we just spent 3 years saying the exact opposite. So
Yeah.
you cannot bullshit me with this shit. And it's like there's so much that a lot of these writers, and this is what I think is happening, when it seemed like they were gonna make it so that Jean and Scott break up and Jean and Wolverine maybe hook up or whatever. I'm like, this was written by someone who watched the cartoon when they were a kid and really wanted Wolverine to end up with Jean, and now is in a position to make that happen. And I was like, this is stupid. Just continue the story as it's been and move it forward. Like, maybe learn, like, contact some polyamorous people, maybe discuss and find out how people live these lives, and then just write that, which is their new normal. Not, oh, I'm gonna find any fucking reason for Jean and Scott to break up, especially with the Brood, which I did think it was kind of funny that they've like painted the Brood as this like mindless parasitic race. I feel like we all like to forget, at least in the comics, that the Brood created binary. The Brood experimented on Carol danvers, so like they're clearly intelligent,
right?
So
I mean,
like,
one of the smartest members of the X school for a long time was a Brood.
Yeah,
the mutant Brood.
Yeah, but it's like, oh, he didn't have the murder instinct, so therefore he's an outcast.
Right.
So it's like, oh, okay, so they're intelligent, and they have scientists who experiment on people and connect them to white holes and give them fucking unlimited power sets. But they also need to murder everything instinctually.
Yeah. The Brood are just fucking weird.
It's like they wanted to make xenomorphs, but then they couldn't like commit to that whole bit.
Yeah, they're a straight up, the early Brood is a straight up rip off of xenomorphs. Yeah.
And then it's like every time they brought him up, it's like there was more complexity. I mean, like I always forget about it, but I own it. I've owned it, I think, since it came out. Contest of Champions 2 from like 2004 or some shit, 2006. No, might as well 2004. The Brood partner with I forgot the other race, the Badoon maybe, to like steal the heroes off of Earth and make them fight each other through like nanotech implanted in them. And it's like the big reveal is that it's the Brood Queen. She's in charge of the whole thing. And it's like, yeah, like this is who the Brood are. The Brood have cunning and guile and technology and ships and all this other shit.
Yeah.
But it's like, and then it's like when the Hickman stuff came up, it's like, oh no, they're just like driven by pure impulse, and like whoever holds this giant egg is like the one in charge. I was like, oh, okay, cool. So now we're just dissolving the entire development of this entire species.
Let's just ignore history. Yeah.
Which is what they did with fucking Kamala Khan most recently. It's like her like last moments were counter to everything that had been developed about her character.
And they did it in a Spider-Man comic.
Yeah, in a Spider-Man book, surrounded by absolutely no one she's like actually friends with.
Yep.
I'm not like, I'm a fan. I loved that first volume. Second volume was okay, but like I love the first volume of Ms. Marvel. I still, one of my favorite moments in comics to this day and possibly forever is when she's going through, like, she's found out she's got powers and she's going through her closet and she just yells out, "Mom, where's my burkini?" And I was like, that's hilarious. That's hilarious. Like, that's such a great moment. Like, man, it's which like throws it back to like the Incredibles. Where's my super suit?
Yeah.
Like,
although if you haven't read I think it's called Death of a Friend, like the issue that's all about her funeral, that was awesome and very well done. That was done very respectfully. Her death, not so much.
The cover with the kids laughing and shit, like, this is supposed to be the death issue. Like, I get it's meant to be like these are the kids that are inspired by her or whatever, but it's like, that's something you do after.
Yeah.
Like, that's
but it's also, you know, the one thing that I'm really glad that they've stuck to and really haven't that I've seen or read that they haven't missed out on is just introducing, Muslim faith in general
Yeah.
through Ms. Marvel to make it a regular part. Yeah, and I don't know what cover you're looking at, because the cover that I'm looking at of
There's,
Fallen
I mean,
Friend,
variant
yeah,
covers,
yeah,
obviously.
is like Spider-Man on his knees crying in the rain
Yeah,
with
and
a bunch of heroes behind him.
But again, almost nobody that she's actually friends with. I think like Wolverine's the one she's had the most.
Wolverine and Captain Marvel.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, those two. But then
Yeah.
I think
Thing,
Reed,
Captain America,
Thing, like,
Iron Man, and Spider-Man. Yeah.
yeah, it's a weird collection. But like
Yeah.
there's a variant cover where it's like she's like a big picture of her in the background and behind the city, and there's like a bunch of girls with like the Ms. Marvel t-shirt, and they're all like laughing. And it's like, how is this a variant cover for this book? Like, this could be the variant cover for a follow-up book of like
Right.
how she's inspired people and like stories about that, but not the fucking memorial issue.
Yeah, not right now.
Yeah, it's a weird, I don't know. They're approaching this stuff weirdly, and it's like the whole thing about the corporate synergy with this, silly. It's silly to me. Like,
Yeah.
oh, she's got to be a mutant. Why? Why does she? People understand that shit is different, and it's not like you promote the reading of comics with your shows anyway.
Right.
Like, oh, once in a while you have a QR code on screen that gives you a free comic, but it's like DC, at least, to give them the little bit of credit they deserve, which is about all they deserve. At the end of their trailers, they say, read where it comes from. Here are the books.
Yeah.
Like, oh shit, you can actually read the story.
When we started talking about doing graphically novel 4 years ago, the idea behind it is, do you like this thing in media? Well, we'll introduce you to the comic book. And I feel very strongly that if I'm going to do a podcast, there can be nothing else in the space that's like, really well known or whatever. Like, I'm not going to do Jay and Miles Explain the X-Men. I'm not going to, because that exists. I'm not going to go through the X-Men beginning to end. I know, like, so that's already out there, right? And so I was like, this is a no-brainer. There's got to be a podcast where people are like, this thing is popular in media. Let's introduce you to the comic. It has to exist. And I looked for a solid 6 months just thinking there's no way this doesn't exist. And to this day, I still don't know of any other podcast that does it. They may do it as an offshoot, but they don't do it as their primary purpose for a podcast,
right?
Which is insane to me. Same thing with Rec Conversations. I was like, I know that there are podcasts and YouTube channels and things that break down like a story, but they're generally like half an hour long, and they don't have somebody there to continually ask questions to fill in the gaps. Yeah. Like, they assume their explanation will be fine. And that's where Rec Conversations came in. But it's insane to me that these things do not exist, or that Marvel itself did not put out a media, at the end of an episode, Secret Invasion just happened. At the end of Secret Invasion, just a thing going, make sure to tune into our podcast where they discuss Secret Invasion, the comic book, and the differences between the TV show and the comics, and they introduce you to the comics.
That's the flip side of it, right? DC had that show for a while. What the fuck was it called? DC, whatever. They had a show for a while that would talk about like the comics. They had a piece of media on YouTube, so like easily accessible, where the people who are fans would talk about their books and their movies and how those two things relate. And it's like the DC has like the marketing side of it down. They just don't have the execution side of it down. It's like the actual films so far have been meh at best. And it's like, well, I won't say at best. There have been better movies, but it's like generally the average is definitely meh. And it's like they had stuff built in to promote the actual sale of the books. I mean, hell, what happened when James Gunn said, this is what we're doing? The first thing that happened, because they like had a little preview of these are the comics, and like they used images of of comics behind them while he talked and overlaid. those books sold out everywhere. The authority trade sold out everywhere immediately. And and again, going back to our earlier point, the fact that happened is insane. Like the fact that there wasn't enough copies available for like, oh, this is a major announcement. We should at least buffer our fucking copy count. Like insane that everyone that wanted a book couldn't buy a book.
I will say that out of DC and Marvel, the big two,
yeah,
DC is pivoting their business plan accordingly better, because you can get all of their, like, okay, so it's $8 a month or $75 a year for their Infinite, which is 30 days after a comic comes out, it's available digitally. That's awesome.
Yeah,
you know,
and Marvel's like 3 months, I think.
Yeah, Marvel's 3 months. So DC is like, okay, well, you got a 30-day window. You know, it will lessen the piracy, because, like I said, there are people out there, like myself included, that if I could just pay $75 a year and I have access to all of your stuff that I can read, awesome. You know, print on demand would be better, but you know, you want to stick to the digital,
right?
That's fine too. You know,
I mean, bro, look at it this way. I've had a bootleg copy of the entirety of Wildstorm, right, pre DC, and even post DC, for years. For years, I haven't read it until it was on Infinite. And it was like they had 7 issues at first, and I read the 7 issues, and then I kept going back to it. I was like, "When are they going to put more?" And then they did, and then I read more. I read it on there. So regardless of the fact that I pirated it years ago, I still only read it on the fucking platform. I still paid for the platform. So it's like, it's not like, to me, the ease of access will eliminate piracy. Certain shit is habit. Like I still download my weekly fucking bootlegs. I'm perfectly happy admitting that. Sure. But like I also just spent $200 at a comic store.
Right. No, I will turn like, around.
I'm stocked. I'm stocked back here.
Yeah.
Like I can open a comic shop tomorrow. Like
yeah, I got my comic book store like that's an hour away in Cedar Falls, Iowa, but I will read things online to tell me what graphics I'm interested in picking up.
Right.
Because that's all I grab anymore are graphics.
Same. Dude, I bootlegged what's it called? I think it's called Skyfall. It was an Image comic. I read the first issue digitally, bootleg. And I was like, this is so fucking good. I'm not even going to read the rest of this bootleg. I literally messaged my fucking comic shop and I was like, get me this book.
Yep.
That's it. That's exactly, because that's how I see. Same thing happened with it's such a fucking funny book. I think you'd enjoy it. The Man Who Fucked Up Time. Fucking great read. What a ridiculous fucking comic. Ridiculous fucking comic. But I read the first issue on a bootleg copy, and I was like, this is fucking hilarious. I cannot even wait to see where the rest of this goes. I'm ordering this book. And it's like, that's how it goes. And it's like certain shit is like, also, I was on TikTok and I had bootlegged, it's called The Many Deaths of Layla Starr. And I hadn't even read it yet, but I was on TikTok and somebody was like, here's the pitch. By the way, it's on sale on Amazon right now. And I was like, yeah, that's a great price. The pitch is good. Done. Like, you know, that's, to me, is like certain shit, especially like more of the indie shit. Like, I don't know nothing about Vault. Like, you know, they don't seem to really have like big universes and shit. But like, I recently, like 3 days ago, just got this in the mail. Wasted Space, full fucking, they call it the Cosmic Collection. I kickstarted it. Like I got them the money direct. But I had the bootlegs since it came out. I had never read them, but it was like, I remembered bootlegging it. I remembered seeing the covers, which is why I grabbed them in the first place. And I was like, you know what? This looks like a cool story. Like, I like the pitch. It's space sci-fi shit. Like, you know, drama comedy kind of shit.
Yeah.
I was like, let's fucking do it. Like, it's, you know, part of it. It sounds a little bit like, what's the word I'm looking for? Firefly. Like, it's got some Firefly vibes. I was like, fuck it, let's just go. And I got the fucking big ass hardcover with the poster and all that. Because like that's the kind of person I am. Like for me, there is definitely more of a value of reading shit in hand.
Yeah.
Because I have read stuff, and this is something I noticed more recently. I've read stuff digitally, whether it's in the Unlimited app or whatever, and then I've read it physically and being like, oh yeah, I did read this before, but I hadn't like really retained any of it. But now I read because the dice fucking pulled it fucking well. I don't know if I so I don't think I was doing it when last we spoke. I don't just pick because I can't. I have face fucking choice paralysis.
Yeah.
There's just too much shit back there. So I roll dice and I flip coins to choose books.
Nice.
Because like that to me, that is impartial. That's the universe. And at one point, I had picked out what was it called? The X-Men, the one that I had just recently bought. I had spent like 2 years staring at prices. I was trying to find it because I was like, the original omnibus was $100, maybe 125. And it was like, it was nowhere under 280.
Oh, Jesus.
And I was like, I am not paying $300 fucking for this book. It's absolutely not.
Yeah.
Like it's like I don't know if you remember it. It was like the era of the X-Men where right after Magneto took over Genosha, and then like Cyclops had just come back from being possessed by Apocalypse, all that shit, right?
This is my favorite Scott Summers, by the way.
Yeah, like G Scott Summers like showing off and being awesome.
Like walking into a cave and zapping like everybody in the cave and looking at Wolverine like what?
Couch. I love that. And then like more recent books of when they show off like, oh, he's awesome and he does like bank shots and shit. I was like, yeah, but that started back then. That started back in the day. Like you guys don't know. But yeah, no, it's like a great story. But like I had read the X-Men run, but it also collects X-Men for like the first X-Men Forever.
Sure.
Where it was like they tried to corporate synergy it with the movies.
Yeah.
And they like resolved a bunch of old storylines, which they finally revealed Graydon Creed's killer, and surprise, it was Mystique.
She kills everyone.
But it was like the great experience out of that for me is that I realized that I'd never actually, I think I had read like my bootleg copies of X-Men Forever, but it had just been like I just had never retained it. Because I remember seeing some of the parts, but then when I read it here, I like remember all of it, because then the additional experience of there's like an issue and a half in that omnibus that's scanned. They're scanned copies of pages. And I love it to such a fucking insane degree, because that means two things. That means that a multi-billion-dollar corporation didn't have fucking backups, which is insane to me.
Yep.
And the thing they spent so much time, so much energy, and so much money fighting at the beginning of the last decade, they had to use the same tools to fucking put their book out. Like, I laughed my ass off so hard. I flipped a page and I was like, wow, this page looks different. And I go back and I was like, this one's clean. I flip over and I was like, holy shit, it's scanned. And I was like, oh, they lost the page. I was like, it'll happen, right?
Sure.
File's corrupt. And then it's like, I finished that issue. And then the next issue, the whole issue, it's like issue 3 or whatever, fully scanned. And I was like, my God, this is awesome. So stupid, but like it's hilarious to me, because it's like there's that whole aspect of like the physical experience, right? There's just something reading, like you read whatever, I read so much shit on digital, but it's like when you read it physically, you retain more. You just do. There's just I think there's something to that. I've read digital things that I don't really remember. I really don't. But I have physical copies of stuff that I haven't touched. I still haven't read them. They're right there. I started a Magic the Gathering series fucking 15 years ago.
Yeah.
I read the first it was a weird thing that happened with 2 books that I read almost not quite back to back, but like I read Tom Clancy's Op Center Line of Control. It was book fucking 9. I didn't know that because when I wasn't reading books at the time. So I didn't know shit about those books. I didn't know that books had series at the time. I just thought that only comics had series. So I picked up book 9. I read the first 9 chapters or 10 chapters, and it's just motherfuckers talking to each other about shit that's happened before. And I was like, I don't know any of this. I don't know who these people are. I don't know anything that's happening. And then I was like, fuck it. Like I'm just so sick of this book. I put it down for like months. I pick it back up. The literal next chapter, flip it over. This dude goes to a bazaar, fucking bombing on this bazaar in goddamn Kashmir. And I was like, oh shit. And it like pulled me in. And then it's like fucking high octane roller coaster ride, right? And it's one of it to this day has one of my favorite action scenes. And I really hope that somebody makes this movie because it's a great fucking action scene. They're in like the mountains in the Alps, and there's a helicopter chasing them, and this dude, I forget how he had a fucking bucket of water. He turns around and he just splashes the fucking helicopter windshield with the fucking water. And because they're so high in the Alps, it freezes and this fucking thing crashes. I was like, this is awesome. Like, I was like, that's such a great fucking moment. Like, what a fucking action scene. But like the same thing happened when I read this Magic the Gathering series. It was, I think it's the Ravnica cycle. And like I didn't know there again, I knew Magic existed, but I didn't know anything about different card sets, and I didn't know they released different shit all the time. Sure. I was just like, Magic, people play cards, I get it. And I was like, I want to pick up one of these books, and I started reading it. It's weirdly almost the same kind of story. First few chapters or whatever, 10, 12 chapters, meh, whatever, like, just set up story, like characters and all this stuff. And then again, this like goblin goes into a fucking bazaar and shit starts blowing up. And then it's like, all right, I'm in, let's fucking go. And it's like weirdly, so like I read the whole book, good book, but it's like I have this memory of that moment because that's when it hooked me. But I still haven't read the rest of the series. But it's like I've read so much shit digitally that I don't remember. Like I bootlegged the entire New 52. I shotgunned the entire New 52. I remember like five books I remember because they were the best books.
Yeah.
And that's really it. That's really it. I've bought since then. I recently bought the entire Aquaman run because that Aquaman run was fucking spectacular. And it was the most shocking one because I never thought I would like Aquaman like that. Like I read the first issue and I was like, wow, this is really good. And I just kept going. I read the whole thing and I was like, damn. And it tied into fucking Swamp Thing, and it tied into fucking Frankenstein, Agent of Shade. So like this whole like darker corner of the DC universe was so fucking good. The Animal Man book was incredible. The fucking Frankenstein, Agent of Shade, I really thought that was going to be a trash book. And it was really interesting, really fun. Like the goofy fucking boss of their agency, which travels around in this little like marble-sized thing, and like it's crazy. Like it's a
Have you read Mr. Miracle by Tom King?
No, that is on the list.
Oh, it's so good. My co-host for Retcon got me to read it, and we did it on the show. And yeah, again, you're talking about like sub characters in this like little part of a comic book universe. That book blew me away. And actually just about everything I've read by Tom King at this point blows me away. He's a brilliant writer.
I've been staring at the Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow thing because it's like he flat out said they're turning that into the movie, which is cool. I think a lot of people have a lot of expectations for the Superman movie. I think a lot of people are gonna be real fucking disappointed because they put up the All-Star Superman like imagery, but he did not mention that book by name once. And people are really sold. They have headcanon the reality of that he's basing that movie off of All-Star. And especially I really hope they're making the disconnection now with all these announcements of like who's going to be in it. Of like, fucking Metamorpho's in it and all these other characters. Like, I don't believe Metamorpho's in that book even for a second, if I recall correctly. So like, I don't think that's going to be a thing. I think people have been really like, I wish, I hope, I pray that Relentless is what they base Authority on, because those first two volumes, even I would stretch it even to say the first 4 volumes, incredible, fucking incredible writing. But You can't, because that would be Jenny Sparks, and Jenny Sparks was the spirit of the 20th century. She's
Yeah.
dead. So
Right.
like, unless you're going to set it in 2000 and then it ends with Jenny Quantum being born, and then the next
Right.
movie in the present day and it's Jenny Quantum as an adult, that's fine. But I don't think they're going to do that. So
No,
as
I
much
don't
as
think
I
so
want to
either.
see Jenny Sparks tell the people of the earth, you be good, we'll
Yeah.
be back. That's a great moment. It's a fucking all-time moment in comics. It's not gonna happen. So
Yeah.
like, when it was like, oh, the Authority Relentless sold out everywhere, I was like, I don't know why. I was like,
Yeah, right?
I don't know why. Like, I mean, like, they could just as easily obviously say that Jenny Sparks is the spirit of the 21st century.
You lose a lot. A
But like,
lot.
yeah, exactly. If you know the book, if you know the story, there is something to the like the big invention, the big invention of mankind in
Mhm.
the 20th century was electricity.
Yeah.
And then the big advent in the big theory in the 21st century has very much been quantum superposition, like the quantum
Mhm.
theories. Like
Mhm.
that there's that, I don't know if you've ever read Captain Marvel Armageddon, or I'm sorry, Captain Atom Armageddon.
No.
There's a moment where he faced, because he I forget how, but he ends up teleporting into the Wildstorm universe.
Okay.
Like right, like his presence there essentially launches the like Armageddon era, which was supposed to like reset Wildstorm. It was supposed to be this whole thing, but then Jim Lee didn't want to make comics anymore. That's really what happened. Like, he drew like one, I think he maybe even drew 2 issues of Wildcats, and then nothing. And then Warren Ellis was relaunching Authority with
Mhm.
Gene Ha, and it was great. And then he got pulled onto a different project or something, and just there was like a delay in producing the book because they thought that they were bringing the Authority into our world like for the whole run, and like people just didn't understand the premise of the book, so like they couldn't get a writer to agree to write it, because whoever the next person was that wrote it was like, oh, when I first saw the setup, I didn't want to do anything, I didn't want anything to do with it because I hate stories where it's like superheroes in our world. And it's like, yeah, but that was literally only the first 2 issues.
Right.
Like, the premise was they're lost outside, they're lost in the multiverse. And it's like, oh, once I figured out what was going on, like, I was on board, and I was like, oh my fucking god, you guys could just talk to this motherfucker. Like,
Right.
could just have a conversation about what the story was. But like, no, like they but when Captain Atom went into the Wildstorm universe, he had this face off with Jenny Quantum, and she shows up and she's like, I'm Jenny Quantum, you know, as in the quantum theory, as in the theory that replaced the atomic theory. Like, I'm so badass, because she was still a teenager, and I was like, this is so good. Like, and it's like having grown up with her, like having like gotten older as she's becoming a young adult, and knowing that she's like spiritually Jenny Sparks reborn.
Right.
So like, it was a perfect moment. And so like, you don't have that if you just make, like you said, you don't have the same thing if you just make her the spirit, Jenny Sparks, the spirit of the 21st century.
Right.
Not the same. Who knows? We'll see. I don't know. I have high hopes, but what's most important before all that is that they pay their goddamn writers and they pay their goddamn actors.
Yup.
I don't even care if those they could fucking cancel all those projects. I don't give a shit. Because if you aren't gonna pay your people, I'm not gonna go fucking pay your
Right.
bills. Like, I'm not gonna go see your movies. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't go see Flash because of many
Ezra
reasons.
Miller.
Because of Ezra Miller for the most part, but also like the lack of the ability to execute this universe, the floundering back and forth of who was going to be what, and oh, he's back in, he's not back in, and like, I hated that
I
whole
will
fucking
watch it
roller
when it's
coaster.
on Max.
Yeah, somebody was like, oh, you could bootleg it now, it's available on digital, and I was like, I do not even want to sully my hard drive with the fucking likeness of Ezra Miller.
Yeah.
I'm gonna watch it on Max, and then when I'm done, it'll be gone forever.
Yeah.
Like, I'm uninterested. Look, I'm not gonna lie, I've seen some of the clips, I've heard some of the stuff that happens in it. It seems right up my alley. It's goofy fucking comic book shit. It sounds like it's gonna be a fun ride for me. But the fact that it's all this behind the scenes nonsense, that they took zero stance on a person who is a literal criminal.
Yep.
No, they have nothing to do with that. I am going, the first movie that is getting my theatrical money that's come from DC in many years, because I think the last thing that we went to see in theaters was before Birds of Prey.
So Suicide Squad?
It might have been Justice League.
Oof.
Like, yeah. Because I don't think they had anything like 2018, 2019, did they?
I think so.
No. This 26, I think 2016 was Justice League. Oh, Shazam. The first Shazam came out after.
There you go.
Yeah, so that's the last movie that got our theatrical dollars. Because I mean, it was COVID, so I wasn't going to go see the Suicide Squad in theaters. Absolutely not. Or Birds of Prey. And then by the time The Flash came around, they already canceled Batgirl, and I was like, you guys are you're losing all credibility with me at this point. Batgirl I was incredibly excited about, and they canceled that.
Yep.
And then all the shit with Ezra Miller, they took no stance on it. They said nothing about it. It's like funny because it's the flip side of the Jonathan Majors situation.
Mm-hmm.
The Jonathan Majors situation was a lot of allegations, no video evidence, and Marvel was like, cool.
Immediate response.
Well, Marvel said nothing. Marvel said nothing, which was the correct result because there was nothing to talk about. There was allegations and nothing had been decided in a court of law. There's no video evidence, whereas Ezra Miller is on camera multiple times, fucking up people, throwing people to the ground, punching people on camera. DC says nothing.
Right. Well, Marvel's response hasn't necessarily been nothing because Jonathan Majors has not done any press for them, has not, like, he is in timeout while all of this stuff gets figured out. That's what I appreciate.
But they also, he was not slated for anything. He, like, Quantumania had already come out. Creed was just finishing up its press tour, but that's about it. Like, he was done with his press tour. The only people that took any kind of stance was that the U.S. Army. He had some commercials for them that they canceled.
Right.
Which, like, to me that made sense because here's the thing: if he is guilty, right? If a court of law decides he's guilty, if it happened, and they don't say anything, well, then they simply waited to see what the results of an actual investigation were. If he's not guilty and they had said something,
they got to walk it back.
Look at Marvel trying to take down a successful black man at a time of his, like, at a height of his career. No, you're not going to say shit. I guarantee you somebody from marketing walked in and said, shut the fuck up to every single executive. Like, I don't want a tweet. I don't want opinions. I don't want nothing. You're going to shut the fuck up until we see how this plays out. And it's like, so people are like, oh, well, they're making backroom deals. And it's like, they might have been. In fact, I would say that's a prudent thing to do. Have a conversation with an actor you could replace him with. Mm-hmm. Have a conversation at somebody's house without any fucking recording equipment. You know what I'm saying? Right. Like,
yeah.
And have an off the record conversation where you could say, hey, we have this kind of need. Not even tell them the
discuss role. Contingencies for this $1 billion enterprise.
Makes perfect logistical sense. But to say something in public is silly, because if you say, oh, we're shopping around for new actors, and then he's found innocent and there's proven to be evidence that, like, which is exactly what happened. He was proven innocent and then he's suing her. Like, it's a whole situation. And it's like, who knows what the fuck happened? Like, look, based on what I've seen, it doesn't seem like he did something.
Right.
But, like, we weren't in that fucking room, so I don't fucking know. Ultimately, we can go, like, as much as our justice system is flawed, I have to go by what the fucking investigation finds.
Sure.
Because, you know, again, none of us were in that room. But, like, Marvel should not have said anything, which is the correct maneuver. And once it all fucking pans out, if they were talking to somebody, it was off the books. It wasn't an official offer. No contracts were written up.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody moves on. Nobody lost anything. And look, in 20 years, is someone going to be like, oh, well, yeah, you know, I was approached by Marvel, blah, blah, blah. Just like most recently, there have been a lot, like, suddenly, there was a lot of fucking interviews with people who were basically on the set of Justice League Mortal. They were, like, ready to shoot. And then they canceled that whole thing. Like, suddenly, we got a lot of interviews. Suddenly? now we got a lot of interviews with people talking about, oh, well, I was on the set. I was going to play this dude. I was in
Right.
makeup. I was in fucking, we were waiting for this guy to show up with the bat suit. All this shit. This has been 10, 15, 20 years now. Now it's like I said, in 20 years, somebody might be brave enough or whatever to be like, yeah, when that whole Jonathan Majors thing happened, Marvel approached me,
Sure.
as it was their right.
Sure.
And it'll be a fun clip that'll get passed around and we'll all fucking move on, because by then Kang will be useless. Kang will have been defeated and we'll be on to Doctor Doom or whoever the fuck else.
Oh God, please a good Doctor Doom.
I found, you are a Doctor Doom fan. I believe that I have found the guy. This is a Serbian actor. He is Roma. So he fits the full bill. I always forget his damn name. Roma actor. Yeah, it's in my history. There he is. What is his name? Sasha Barbul. He is fantastic. Like, I think he's got the look. I really think.
How do you spell his last name?
Barbul. I think he's got the look.
Ooh, okay.
I think he's got the look, and his role selection seems to be on the more dramatic side. So I think he's got the chops. Yeah, I think, and he's Roma. I think that's something that they really need to start paying more attention to, as far as like who they're casting, what background they're casting. The fact
yes and no. I don't know if you want your first Roma character in the MCU to be a major villain.
Oh, they're not gonna. I mean, they can't retcon reality. Like,
right? Yeah, I get it.
They cast Scarlet Witch.
I get it.
Cast Scarlet Witch, but we don't really have. I mean, Nightwing, but that's not Marvel. I really think that's the only.
Yeah,
I think that's the only thing. Honestly, I really think. I think that's going to be the thing that. That's the only role. I mean, unless it's going to be, like I said, unless you change, like give us an alternate reality Scarlet Witch or something.
Right.
She's Roma. But like, I just think that's going to be the next opportunity they have. But at the same time, like, it's the like rumored casting, but Daveed Diggs, who I think is a fantastic actor in general, but Daveed Diggs as Ben Grimm. Oh my God. Oh my fucking God. Yes. And the fact that he's Jewish, and that's one of the biggest things that people like get mad at, that like, which I understand, like, that's the representation that you've seen, and like the entire medium of comic books is created by Jewish people. So like, I feel like maybe we need to give them a little shine.
Right.
Hey, the fact that like, as much as I liked Moon Knight, I do understand where people who are upset that they did not cast a Jewish guy to play him are upset. I get that, because like, I can't even fully fathom the connection people have, especially to their religion, because I watch Ms. Marvel.
Yeah.
And I got out of that because I was raised Muslim. I got way more out of that than I didn't even realize I needed. The shit that I got out of it emotionally, like the connection, like the seeing Muslim culture just positively presented.
Right.
I am Muslim adjacent. Like, that's how I fucking describe myself.
No,
so, like,
totally understood.
I can't even understand what that fully means to someone who practices, who is part of that culture daily. Like, the fact that I needed that, and I felt so good seeing it portrayed in a positive fashion on screen, I can't even fathom what that looks like for someone else. So I can understand why people get mad that, certain characters aren't Jewish when they're canonically Jewish.
Right. And the new Spider-Man Spider-Verse movie, where they actually talk a lot more about how Miles is half Puerto Rican.
Yeah.
I am, my mother's Puerto Rican. And so like, some of the jokes in there that like may have been hit or miss with a lot of the audience. Like at one point she's like, yeah, there's a rumor that this new Spider-Man is Puerto Rican. And Miles is like, nah, he seems more Dominican to me. Like, that was fucking hilarious to me, because of the amount of times that just Hispanic culture is just kind of painted with the same brush, was amazing. Or like the scene in the guidance counselor's office where she's like, this poor immigrant family, she's like, we're actually Puerto Rican, like we're United States citizen. She's like, this poor immigrant family. like those jokes super landed for me, but they're also so important because I realize that there are kids watching this movie that will take that away. Like that little nugget from that scene is what they'll take away. Puerto Ricans are American citizens, you know, because it was in this joke in the Spider-Man movie that I saw when I was 8.
Yeah. Oh, but it's propaganda, Josh. It's propaganda, you know?
Try that in a small town.
Dude, we'll wrap it up here because holy shit, I could dive into that nonsense. Somebody pointed out that the town he's from is like 140,000
Macon,
people.
Georgia. Yeah.
Yeah. And like the places that he's talking about, like the situations that he's talking about, like Flint and like Charlottesville are like 50,000 and 7,000 people. Like they're small fucking towns.
Yep.
So what the fuck are you talking about? And there's this is I'm gonna cherish this moment for the rest of existence. Someone showed video of a concert of his where there was a mass shooting.
Yes.
And he ran off stage.
Yep.
He ran off stage while his audience got slaughtered. Yeah. So where was Grandpa's gun dead, motherfucker?
Yeah.
Yeah. But ultimately, I think we've decided that Ben Reilly is a hero.
Ultimately, we decided to agree to disagree. Is really what happened there. 54 months versus 34 or 30.
Look,
34 months.
Look, sir. If we're talking time spent, I don't know. That's a weird measure. I don't know. I think it's more about the actions and the character of a man, the real character, not like spoiled by shitty writing.
Yeah, I mean, Ben Reilly definitely goes on the list of characters that have potential, but I don't think that potential has been explored. There's been no writer yet to really.
No one wants to take the deep dive into that, and that's why like when I actually really liked when they did like post Peter's body when Doc Ock like created his own new body and ran being Spider-Man in like not Vegas but Sacramento or San Francisco. He was like Spider-Man in San Francisco, and I was like, that works for me. This is forward moment. This is forward movement for these characters. Oh, okay. He's gonna try to be a good guy, just a better good guy, maybe a little more brutal. Cool, awesome. We can have 3 Spider-Man, 4 Spider-Man, 5 Spider-Man. There's fucking 17 speedsters in fucking DC. Why can't we have 7 Spider-Man? You know, like. But then, the clone was degenerating, and he had to go back to his. And I don't know why he had to go back to like a little pudgy body. Like it's a new body. Why is the new body already pudgy? He hasn't even had anything to eat yet.
Yeah.
So
you can identify with the common man. That's why he doesn't get married.
Yeah. So it's like, it's I fucking hate that shit so much.
Well, I sent you in our chat here. I sent the first link that I sent you is our Rec Conversations episode on One More Day. So you can listen to us make fun of it instead of actually having to read it.
Awesome.
And our guest for that was my own wife, who knows nothing about Spider-Man comics, and so she asked some very poignant questions throughout.
That's I tried to do that one time with my wife, and that did not go well because she was like, when we finished, she was like, "You were just talking at me."
Yeah, we try to have more of a conversation and stop for questions and things like that, but make smart ass comments, which you kind of have to in some of this. The first season of Retcon, we did what I called the major 3, which was the Clone Saga, Sins Past, and ended with One More Day.
Oh, Sins Past, gross.
Yep.
Disgusting, dude. I'm so glad that they retcon that out.
Yep. They did a lot of Spider-Man retconning the last year or so, 2 years or so.
What do you mean? Besides that?
Well, there's the Ben stuff, but there's also they retconned Sins Past by revealing
that it was all in his head.
Yeah, basically.
I love that. That was a great. See, like that to me brought Nick Spencer out of the doghouse just a little bit because of Secret Empire. He dug a pretty deep hole with that for me.
Yeah.
But like resolving sins past, outstanding. That brought him up a little bit.
Yeah, we did Secret Empire too. That the worst part of Secret Empire wasn't even in the story. It was an alternate cover where they had Magneto in a Hydra outfit on the cover.
Oh, Jesus Christ. I forgot about that.
Which the levels of how fucking horrible that is.
The fucking level of ignorance on that is outstanding.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
So,
wow.
Didn't happen in the actual comic, but it was on a cover.
The unfortunate part of that is that all the actual event structure was so well done that it upsets me that it's for such a shitty event. Because all the tie-in books all worked really well with the main book. They all actually tied in. And it's for that. It couldn't have been for something else. It was for that.
All right, my man.
All right, sir. Thank you so much, man, for hanging out. You gave me a lot of your time today. I appreciate it.
We'll have to get you back over onto Retcon. We'll find something you haven't read.
I mean, there's lots of stuff I haven't read. I'm probably 50% on my collection, like of what I've actually physically read.
Yeah.
So there's still lots of stuff. I just, for the first time in ever, I read Mouse last year.
Oh, we're doing Mouse soon, and that's going to be rough.
It's
a great book, but damn, it's rough.
It's an incredible book, and the best and worst part about it is that it is so fucking weirdly relevant to today that I like paused.
Yeah,
I paused in my reading. I was like, "Yo,
yeah,
that is today." Like I've seen this exact conversation play out on the news recently.
Yep.
Like,
that's gonna be rough.
Yeah.
Oh, well, on that note, let's end on a high note there. Good talking to you, my man. I'll be back whenever you want me, whenever we're fighting again, or even when you want to just talk.
For sure, man, for sure. Let the listeners and the viewers know where they can find you, the podcast, the socials, all that good stuff.
Yep. Graphicallynovel.com will take you to our Facebook page. We are on basically anything that you can podcast. So that's Graphically Novel. There is 2 different Graphically Novel podcasts. We know the other one. That's 3 brothers in Appalachia that the way that they connect with each other, because they live in different places, is they meet up weekly and talk about a comic book. We're not them. Our symbol looks like a microphone with a little blast, comic book blast behind it. Our other show is Rec Conversations. We just finished a 6-part series on Graphically Novel about time travel movies. The reason it was 6 when we planned on 5 is we decided we needed an episode 0 where we talked about time loops, which are not time travel movies. And so we went through that. And then we went through our top 5 time travel movies. And then at the end, ranked them by science, fun factor, and then the consequences to the space-time continuum. So we had a good time with that. I had not seen Butterfly Effect for a very long time, and it's still fucking with me. If you have not watched that in a while, go back. It deserved more acclaim than it got.
But did you watch Butterfly Effect 2?
No, absolutely not. And I did watch the director's cut of Butterfly Effect, so I got the ending where the good ending, quote unquote. But yeah, that's what we've got going on. We've got Rec Conversations, new episodes are coming up. Graphically Novel, we're going to be doing Superman, Hulk, Sandman. Those are the ones that we're planning on right now. And then everything else is just as it goes.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Thank you again. It's great having you. Great conversation had. Hope I didn't talk over you too much, man.
No, not at all. We got excited.
All right. Well, that's going to be it for this one. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for listening, and we will see you in the next one.
I'ma kill the game with a multiverse. You gotta hold me first. Yeah, but I've been a dick. Never got my credit. Now they dipping for the end of it. I'm about to benefit. Way up. Sorry who I use and day up. New whip pocket in the back. I'm mayor.